The Board of Education of Lane Community College will now meet, the April 2nd Lane Community College Board of Education board meeting will now be called to order. Celia, will you please call roll?
Yes, Kevin Alltucker.
Here.
Denise Diamond.
Here.
Austin Fulnagi.
Here.
Sophie Gibson.
Here.
Steve Mattel.
Here.
Zach Mulholland.
Here.
Julie Weisman.
Here.
We will be moving on to the land recognition. The land acknowledgement speaker for this meeting is Andrew Johnson. Andrew, will you please provide the recognition?
I'd like to start our meeting with the acknowledgement that the land we are on is the traditional homelands of the Kalapuya people. The Kalapuya were stewards of this land, of this very land for over 14,000 years before their traditional way of life was forever disrupted. We start our meeting with humility and reverence for the original inhabitants, the Kalapuya.
Thank you. We've been moving on to the adoption of the agenda. I think that action item F is going to run longer than we were expecting, and we also have a full house for speakers tonight. So I'm going to ask that we move action item F to our mid-April meeting, unless there's objections to that.
Objection?
Well, I'm just looking, sorry.
It's
Public comment guidelines.
disgusting.
Okay, so if that's okay with everyone, we'll discuss those for, maybe 20 minutes at our mid-April meeting, hopefully arrive at a good group consensus, and then we can approve those probably as part of our consent agenda in May. Okay, so I'll ask for a motion to approve the agenda with that change.
So moved.
Second.
I saw Julie first.
Sorry, I was waiting for you to kind of see if anybody else had an agenda change, and that was one of the ones I was going to suggest, but I also had one other one if I
Okay.
could. Just because we have a full house of speakers and we want to accommodate everyone who wants to speak tonight, and the late start, I think I would like to ask that the discussion item, the biannual enrollment and retention report, item B, be also postponed until our mid-work session meeting as well, to give us a little more time at this late hour.
Everybody find that acceptable?
Could you repeat that, Julie? Sorry.
It's on the backside.
At
Yeah.
the backside. Thank you. Okay. I understand.
I'm just trying to kind of free up some time on
Yeah.
the agenda.
Okay, yeah, I think, I'm not positive we can fit it in at the mid-April meeting, but we'll find our next earliest time that we can fit it and get it in. Okay, so I think what I'll instead ask for, if we could pull back that last motion and do a motion with that second change as well.
I move to approve with both changes to the agenda.
I second that.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed, nay. And that passes unanimously. Okay. Please note that the equity lens has been provided for the board's reference. Do we have any questions or comments regarding the responses to information requests?
Hi, Chair. Just a few questions, and this is in regards to the baseball field. We obviously got some information requests about the baseball field and so forth. I was wondering, because I'm not sure if this a part of the answer question was answered in regards to any possible delaying of any decisions around the baseball field into June, if that is possible per the sustainability. I'm seeing a shaking a head of no, so I will accept that as the answer. And no worries. I accept that completely as an answer there. So yeah, those are the only questions I have as of this time.
Okay, there was the responses, those came out just a little bit before this meeting, right? Okay, I was driving here. I did not get to look at those in detail. And then there was a few questions regarding the dental clinic, so those will be forthcoming at a future meeting.
A future meeting, yes.
Okay, thank you. We will now be moving on to public comment. The board may not respond directly to any issues raised during public comment, but will refer those issues to the president for appropriate action. Celia, do we have any public comment?
Yes, we do. And we will be giving everyone 2.5 minutes to give their testimony this evening. We will start with the students, and I will go back and forth between online and in person. So the students in person tonight: Abigail Villegas, Caitlin Woods, and Johnny Robert Stark. Oh. What's your name? Oh, okay. We'll add you to that list too. Okay, so go ahead in that order.
Good evening, Board and President Bolger and SGA President Sophie. I, Abby Villegas, have been on the Student Activity Fee Committee for 3 years as the Student Union Representative. I stand before you to express and share my experience in SAFC. I entered SAFC wanting to be an advocate for student voices. For me, the fee is from the students and used by student groups to provide student enrichment. The committee consists of a diverse group of student leaders with many areas of expertise. The committee has put many hours into reading narratives to fully understand the groups and their activities. As a committee, we work to understand budget reports as well as voting as representatives of students at large. The SAFC is a voice not only for students, but also for student groups. As the groups are represented, a representation of what students want to see and have or want to have on campus. From educational and fun activities to supportive services and having a safe space for students to feel comfortable. Being a part of the committee for quite some time, I have been able to see how these allocations have been given back to students. By being part of SAFC, I have been able to use my leadership skills to work with my fellow peer students to completely understand how these allocations are done and given to groups. I am glad that I am able to come here and share how SAFC has benefited not only myself, but also the students of ASLCC. Thank you.
Caitlin Woods.
So, my name's Caitlin Woods. I'm a student here at LCC for a couple years now. And I'm a proud member of the Eugene Springfield Democratic Socialists of America. As a democratic socialist, I firmly believe in the freedom of speech and that this change to public comment will severely limit dissent from the rank and file members of the LCC community. The people that this board is meant to serve. I also believe that this motion will be used to disproportionately affect the different unions on campus' ability to voice their grievances and concerns in a public forum. I urge the board to not go through with this change. Thank you.
Johnny Roberts Stark, followed by Amanda Fallon.
Good evening, all. My name is Johnny. I am a human services student here at Lane. I'm in my second term. I've recently gone through onboarding at Lane, and I have interacted with a lot of students who have done so as well. They've come back to school. They've come to be a part of these programs, better their lives and better the lives of those around them. To that end, the budget and the decisions regarding it seems very pertinent to our everyday impacts. When we were talked to by our student president regarding how this might impact our lives and why we should be interested, most of the students around me didn't have the knowledge or tools they needed to effectively care. Most of the students don't have what they need to give good input for these decisions, partially because they don't really know anything about the budget in the first place. They don't know how our budget's being spent and dispersed right now, much less what it'll be like once a change might occur. They want to know how they can access the information, and they want this information to be easily accessible, publicly accessible, and transparent. They want to also apply this to student government at large. Meetings like this are widely unadvertised and unknown by the student body. That's it.
Good evening, everybody. It's nice to see some of you that I was with in Salem at Lobby Days, advocating for the school. My name is Amanda Fallon. For those of you that don't know me, I am the SAFC chair for this year. I have led an incredible, very diverse team of students and helped them process an exorbitant amount of information, and we've had to go through budgets. And the whole time they have kept in mind, not just the bottom line of what's being spent by the students, but what it's going for. And also the checks and balances of, is this fee-funded activity upholding their part of what they're supposed to be doing? Are they following their bylaws? Are they following inclusivity and all that stuff? And I actually got to meet quite a few people from all of the clubs when I was helping student government with Welcome Week last term. So it was kind of nice to see everybody and put names to faces, because I can read all the papers in the world, but there's no face. So I was able to do that before we actually had the panel committees. So I just wanted to thank you guys, every one of you, for all your hard work, reading through the paper and bearing with us, because as always, it's a learning experience. I also wanted to speak on the tuition increase possibilities. I wasn't necessarily comfortable with it when I first heard about it, but considering everything that we've learned with the SAFC and how money's being appropriated here and there and everywhere, and then hearing how it's actually being spent, I think it's actually with the perspective of, if you're looking at if this year's SAFC recommendation is approved by you guys, that it should actually save the students some money next year. So, I mean, it's not, nothing's gonna equate the inflation, but at least we're not like double hitting to, like, we're not upping everything on them. We're trying to save our students some money where we can, but also so that they can keep their activities and their clubs and not lose anything. Thank you.
Is there an Ally Mayer here? We had a student sign up online, but she's not online. No? Okay, we'll move on to online public comment. We have Jessica Alvarado, followed by Wendy Rose Aaron and Delisa Mishan-Tubby.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Should I wait for the timer or just go?
You're good.
Oh, I didn't see where it went. Okay. I'm Jessica Alvarado, and I wanted to thank President Bolger, SGA President Gibson, cabinet members, and esteemed Board of Education members for this opportunity to provide public comment. Wendy, Rose, Aaron, and I are faculty co-chairs of the LCCEA Racial Equity and Social Justice Committee. We are sharing this statement on behalf of this committee. Thank you for this. Oh, sorry, I didn't read it. We want to highlight a discussion we heard near the end of the March 5th board meeting. We appreciate President Bolger for seeking out Native American perspectives in our community. We look forward to your bringing back to the board what you have to share. Chair Zach Mulholland, we thank you for inviting further discussion. And board member Austin Carnegie, thank you for reaching out to the Native American Student Association members to gain their perspective about land statements. We are grateful for your acknowledgement of the Diversity Council land back statement and the invitation to the board to develop a statement that will more closely align with the Diversity Council statement and the perspectives of students who are members of NASA. In the March meeting, the RESJ committee had a statement read regarding the Diversity Council's and NASA approved land back statement. This statement, like all effective land statements, ends with an emphasis on the work of LCC faculty, staff, and students to honor our Native communities. To demonstrate our commitment, this Saturday, April 5th, the Native American Student Association will be hosting the popular LCC powwow. This is one of the biggest events on campus and demonstrates the ways in which current faculty, staff, and students keep with the spirit and purpose of the Kalapuya sovereignty.
Thank you.
Wendy Rose Aaron.
Good evening. My name is Wendy Rose Aaron, and I'll be continuing the statement started by my colleague Jessica Alvarado. So in amplifying Native voices, we're sharing with you that the Native American Student Association has coordinated and planned the LCC powwow, despite having to balance coursework and their personal lives. These students were empowered to host this annual event that brings in thousands of people from across the land we now refer to as Oregon. It's thanks to these wonderful students and their hard work that LCC is able to put on such amazing events. We really hope that you'll attend. As the Board of Education reflects on their current land acknowledgement, we first encourage the board to collaborate with us, the Diversity Council, the Native American Student Association, and other impacted parties to come up with a land statement that's appropriate, graceful, and effective. Second, we hope that the board will allow for plurality in land statements so that speakers will have the freedom and sovereignty to read their own statements, as long as they are in service to the spirit of Kalapuya and Native sovereignty, freedom, and power. We cannot snap our fingers and undo 400 years of genocide and exploitation, but we can have brave, honest, and truthful reflections on our relationship to this land and how we make Lane Community College a more welcoming learning institution for everyone. Thank you for your time. Good night.
Lisa.
Hello, I'm Delisa Mission Tubby. I'm the Executive Director at Volunteers in Medicine Clinic. But I wanted to come and just give my appreciation to Lane Community College tonight because we are using your cooperative education students and your community of students at Lane Community College is helping our community of patients and those who are sick at Volunteers in Medicine. They come and they help us with their nursing. They come and help us with their medical records experience and background and such. And I just wanted to say thank you because the students you're sending us are prepared, they are professional, and they are really doing a good job. This is so much better than it has been in the past few years. And I just wanted to give my thanks to say to you all, good job and well done. Thank you.
Okay, the remainder of public testimony will be in person. We have Steve Wildish, followed by Susan Cox and Rosie Pryor.
Board of Education Chair Mulholland, Vice Chair Altucker, President Bolger, and board members, good evening. My name is Steve Wildish. It is my honor to currently serve as the College Foundation Board of Trustees President. During April, our volunteer scholarship readers evaluate scholarship applications, followed by foundation staff review and award of scholarships in June. Providing students scholarships is the foundation's single most impactful contribution to the college. We support the college in other ways, including the college campaign. We are pleased to report that we're making great progress in this critical endeavor. President Bolger has done an outstanding job working with the foundation by communicating college priorities and setting support goals. A particular interest to my company is the emphasis on workforce development and the new iTech facility. It is inspiring to hear President Bolger speak about the opportunities the new technical programs will provide Lane students. Working in partnership with President Bolger and the foundation staff, we as a family and a company were privileged to contribute to the college campaign directed towards these important workforce initiatives. In conclusion, I would like to invite the Board of Education to consider engaging in a joint meeting with the Foundation Board of Trustees. Our closer collaboration can only help to better serve the college and students. Thank you for your time.
Board of Directors, Dr. Bulger. My name is Susan Cox, and I have the pleasure of serving with Steve on the foundation board. And when he was talking about the scholarships, it reminds me how one of the favorite parts of our meetings, I think, is being able to meet different students. And they're very profound interactions with us about what the scholarships mean to them, what LCC means to them. And just, listening to the students tonight, it reinforces that. So our commitment certainly is to the college, and we're delighted to do that. And we also appreciate the time and commitment that each of you as board members have to contribute as well. I am also on the board of the Lane Transit District, and I can tell you how delighted the board has been to see the partnership between Lane Transit and LCC. I know personally that that's something that was forged directly between Jameson, who is the LTD CEO, but also Dr. Bulger. I think that it's important to remember that the community part in Lane Community College, and it truly is the community's asset, and it's a pearl. It's something that we're very proud of as a community. And some of the things that are highlighted are some of the innovative programs that have happened more recently. I remember the nursing program and how that's expanded. It's a difficult time now. It is, there are a lot of challenges, and there are challenges ahead. So I want to just express my appreciation to Dr. Bulger for her leadership, her vision, and how you have impacted the community, how in just a really very short period of time, you have embedded yourself into the community and made some important connections and networks that are inspiring, I think, to the students as well. So I want to echo my colleague, Steve Wildish, and the urge, the idea of working together and collaboration. So again, I want to really express my appreciation. And I know I speak for certainly the executive board at the foundation for the hard work, the contribution, and the regional and national stature, Stephanie, that you're bringing to LCC. Appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Rosie Pryor, followed by Greg Fitzgerald, Sarah Erickson, and Russell Shitabata.
First of all, thank you for the closed captioning. As someone who is severely hearing impaired, I really appreciate all that Lane is doing to make these meetings accessible. So thank you very much for that. I have benefited from it already. Mr. Chair, members of the board, President Bulger, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you for a few minutes. My name is Rosie Pryor. I was going to tell you where I reside, but nobody else did, so I guess I don't need to. First, I want to thank each of you on the board for your service. Your dedication to Lane is so important. Thank you, all of you. I also want to thank President Bulger and her team of professional administrators for their dedication to Lane and for their accomplishments. I'm confident you know, as board members, how important it is for you to establish the policy environment that you want these administrators to work within, and how important it is to them that you speak with some unity in setting those policy parameters. I cannot imagine how difficult it would be for an LCC president to successfully implement board direction that is at odds with itself. I join you in wanting Lane's president to be able to work effectively to achieve the vision the board shares. Soon you will have at least 2 new members of the board. I learned long ago that if even one member of a group changes, you have a whole new group. I hope you will take the opportunity to use your annual retreat time to share with each other your hopes and concerns for Lane. I believe that people who know each other trust each other, and people who trust each other work well together. Finally, I'm grateful for an opportunity to thank the faculty and staff at Lane who work tirelessly every day to transform the lives of so many people. Lane is a gem in our community and is so largely due to the incredible miracles that faculty and staff are able to achieve. My best to the students who are enrolled and to those who have yet to enroll. I'm grateful to know that enrollment is finally back on an upward trend, and that's a tribute to all of you. Thank you, all of you.
I'm giving back 2 minutes and a half because I made a mistake in sign grade yet. I thought he was just signing.
Sarah Erickson, Russell Shitabata, and Daphne Gabrielli.
Good evening, board members and President Bolger. My name is Dr. Sarah Erickson, and I'm a faculty instructor in the mathematics department. I'm teaching 4 math classes this term, 3 in person and 1 online. I always request my distance education courses to be in the online with in-person testing, OT modality. While I don't generally think of my students as seeking opportunities to cheat, solution farms like Chegg and generative AI sadly make it extremely easy and tempting. A 2023 meta-analysis covering over 4,600 students in higher ed found that over 40% self-reported to have cheated in online exams. There's never been a greater need for secure proctored assessments to maintain the integrity of LCC transcripts. At the same time, though, many students also need online classes because they are juggling work, caregiving, and other obligations. Asking these students to take 2 or 3 in-person proctored exams over the term is only reasonable if they are informed of exam dates as far in advance as possible so they can plan accordingly. They also need flexible hours, such as the ability to take their exams in the evenings or on weekends. I'm grateful that Lane's instructional testing services has great staff who administer thousands of exams each term while providing a friendly face to students who often feel anxious or stressed taking exams. They even provided a private testing room for a colleague student who was breastfeeding. Sadly, however, inconsistent funding and staffing of ITS has been a challenge. Last term, because ITS couldn't publish their hours until after the term had already started, I had to communicate exam dates to my students before I knew when ITS would be open. It turned out ITS wasn't open on one of the Saturdays that I requested and was initially approved for my exam. I had to scramble to reserve a classroom so I could proctor the exam myself. I could only offer my students a 2-hour time frame, and despite multiple communications, some of my students went to the wrong location and sadly missed the exam. I urge you to provide ITS with sufficient and consistent funding so they can offer a broad range of hours, including several evenings per week and all Saturdays, and can publish their hours as far in advance as possible. This will ensure faculty can hold reliable, secure assessments, minimize disruption and stress for our students, and provide transcripts for employers and for transfer institutions that reflect a valid measure of student mastery. Thank you.
Chair, Board, Dr. Bolger. My name is Russell Shitabata, and I didn't get it right still. My father's was Earl Shitabata. Closer. Anyway, he grew up on a sugarcane plantation. And he was the second youngest of 9 children, and he was the first in his family to attend college. He studied accounting and became an accountant. I was the first in my family to go to graduate school for a doctorate, and I earned that doctorate from the University of Oregon, and I worked at Lane Community College for over a quarter of a century. I retired just this year. And that brings me to why I'm speaking to you today, which is BP 275. The only reason why I was able to retire this year at my current age is because of the stability of the funds in BP 275. And, it allows me to have coverage for health insurance. Now, that might look to you like a straightforward expense, but my father, the accountant, he knew that you had to capture value, especially when the value wasn't that obvious. And the value you get from BP 275 is that if it wasn't there, I wouldn't have retired. And see, in my better than quarter century at LCC, I worked my way to the top of the salary schedule. And I'd be working here for 6, maybe 7 more years, and you'd be paying that full salary each of those years. Plus, you'd be paying into PERS, and on top of that, yes, you would also still be paying for health insurance. So there's real value there. And to borrow from that fund would create an instability. My father, the accountant, would frown on the practice of borrowing from a dedicated fund. He would say it introduces moral hazards and that it is far from best practice. And that would be an understatement. Thank you for your time.
Daphne Gabrielli, followed by Devin Lawson and Kelly Mathers.
Good evening, board members, President Bolger, Student President Sophie. I'm Daphne Gabrielli, and I'm reading a statement on behalf of my colleague, Carrie Green, who is the head women's volleyball coach. She writes, since our last negotiations, NWAC rules have changed significantly, increasing the number of hours we as coaches work. There's not a time when we are out of season. We need fair pay to make coaching sustainable. In season starts August and goes through November. We practice 2 to 3 times per day, which averages to 25 hours per week. Outside of practice, I spend countless hours recruiting players, retaining and graduating students. I meet with my players weekly during season and monthly out of season. I do all of the travel planning for myself, other coaches, and the players. I manage and plan my own budget, order gear, uniforms, and supplies for all practices and games. I'm a tutor and advisor to make sure our students maintain eligibility. I drive a van to all of the games. An average drive is 2 to 2.5 hours, but we had one game in Ontario, a 16-hour round trip. We have overnight stays and are in charge of our students the entire time. Once per term, I do a recruiting showcase in which I spend 4 hours meeting with parents and recruits to show them our facilities, provide time with other students, and help them understand the benefits of attending our college. An estimate of the total hours I work in season is 35 hours per week from August through November for 15 weeks. Out of season, I'm doing most of the above. My coaching stipend for the entire year is approximately $18,000. That's from August 1 to June 30. Thus, I earn $826 per pay period. We have to have other jobs to make up for the fact that we're not getting paid for the hours we are working. We are dedicated to this college and our entire Lane Community College community. We are asking for fair wages and to be compensated for the work we do. We appreciate your consideration as coaches who go above and beyond for our student athletes. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Devin Lawson. I'm also a student here at Lane Community College. Tonight, I wanted to talk about the public comment agenda item. I sincerely believe that public comment isn't a formality and it's not another box to check. I think that it's a cornerstone of democratic governance, and the people's right to speak, especially at a public institution like LCC, shouldn't just be a courtesy. In fact, it isn't. It's a duty, and it's how we build trust, ensure transparency, and keep public power accountable to the people, which the board represents. These proposed restrictions, which I did read, don't just limit speech, they limit who feels welcome in this space. And in time when democratic institutions across this country are under attack, we should be finding ways to invite more people to the table, not fewer. Lane Community College should be a model of what democracy looks like. I think that it can, and that means open doors, open minds, and open microphones. I urge you to seriously consider the agenda item. Thank you.
Kelly Mathers, followed by Amy Beasley and Christina Howard.
Good evening, board members. My name is Kelly Mathers, and I'm an LCCEA member who teaches in the automotive program in advanced technology. I teach engines, wheels and tires, suspension, drivetrains. The management and college insist on having 30 students in my class every term. The industry standard for safety is between 10 and 25 students per class. As a survey of all the other CTE automotive programs within the state, shows an average of being 18. Having 30 students in my class is problematic for several reasons. Due to the capacity of 30 students in my classes, students are losing out, not getting the education they paid for. Students are getting frustrated, failing classes because they do not get all the help they need to be successful. Students are not getting the attention they need to produce quality work in a timely manner. They do not get daily one-on-one interactions to help them finish the projects. Now it takes a week or more to what it used to take a couple of days to get them through. In addition, some returning students had even left the program due to the size of the class, and there was no seats available. In previous years, we haven't had many accidents at all. This last winter term in my class, in 1 week, there were 3 accidents. One student cut his finger, another smashed his hand because we weren't able to give them the tips and ideas about procedures while they were working in a safe manner. In the past, with fewer students, the groups were smaller. There was plenty of time and space to instruct them in working in a safe environment. Finally, besides working the 24 hours I spend each week in class, I've been forced to work many additional hours throughout the term on weekends for years just to keep up. The workloads are simply too heavy. This has put stress and division in my family and life matters. I fully enjoy my job, but I had no idea my entire life would be needed to be dedicated to LCC. I'm overwhelmed with work here, and I believe the class size needs to be decreased and limited so we can maintain a robust faculty, positive student interaction, and a healthy learning environment so we can do our best work to help our students. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good evening. My name is Amy Beasley, and I'm reading a statement on behalf of another faculty member who couldn't be here tonight. She writes, "Dear Lane Community College Board of Education, my name is Erica Masaki, and I'm a full-time instructor in the Social Science Division and an LCCEA member. I am also a practicing Catholic. Like many Americans, my faith is the most important part of my life, and I am sure I have many colleagues here that feel the same, no matter what faith they practice. I am writing to voice my support for adding 2 paid floating days for cultural or religious observances so that both myself and my faculty colleagues can engage in practices that are so important to who we are as people. For Roman Catholics, during the 2024-25 academic year, there are 3 holy days of obligation, days on which Catholics are to refrain from engaging in work or activities that hinder the worship owed to God, Catechism of the Catholic Church, that do not fall on weekends or existing LCC holidays. These are the Solemnity of the Assumption, All Saints' Day, and the Immaculate Conception of the Blessed Virgin Mary. Full-time faculty are able to use personal days, but this would mean we need to use all of our personal days to exercise our religious freedom. As an instructor, I have had students ask for excused absences for other faiths, including Jewish and Muslim religious observances, and I know other instructors have made similar requests, so I am aware that there are numerous religious observances that do not align with the LCC holiday calendar. These floating days acknowledge the rich diversity of faith and culture, especially for observances that are less recognized, yet still deeply important. By adding 2 paid cultural or religious days, faculty will have the ability to observe their faith without worrying about the availability of leave. Exercising religious freedom is one of the core tenets of our country's founding, and granting these paid days would help LCC to encourage faculty to exercise their religious freedoms while also helping the college to recruit and retain diverse employees. Thank you.
Christina Howard, followed by Kevin Steves and Eric Kim.
Good evening, Board of Education and President Bolger. My name is Christina Howard. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm here to speak on behalf of the public comment agenda item. The final draft of the public comment guidelines, I believe, conflicts with Lane's values of diversity, collaboration, and partnership and integrity. Number 1 is diversity. Hearing all voices is more important than strict time limits and limiting speakers, as public comment is the only opportunity for many to be heard. Selecting speakers from a randomized list excludes voices from smaller identity groups within Lane and the broader community. The Board of Education should model our shared value for developing capacity to understand issues of difference, power, and privilege by welcoming all constituents to speak in public comment. Time limits and other restrictive procedures should not be enforced, as LCC is a small community and only major issues of public interest generates a long list of commenters. Secondly, Lane's collaboration and partnership value pledges a commitment to promoting meaningful participation in governance. Inviting community members to prepare and offer testimony, only to deny them the opportunity to speak due to structural barriers, undermines this commitment. Finally, the proposed procedural language threatens Lane's integrity value. The vague language of personal attacks and not confidential limits will likely result in unlawful, unconstitutional, authoritarian restraints on speech. Broad characterizations for prohibited speech, such as personnel issues versus personnel records, could effectively limit or deny comments from any Lane employee about their experiences or perspectives as an employee. We are deeply concerned that these guidelines could not only chill but lead to unlawful limitations on speech and fundamentally alter democratic norms. Restrictions on speech content could become unlawful by potentially violating constitutional rights under the First Amendment, employees' legally protected right to speak on matters of public concern, and union member protected activity. The only content-based restrictions that should be enforced are those that prohibit legally impermissible speech, such as defamation and other unlawful statements. Now more than ever, we have to protect our democracy. There's one board meeting per month where the community may appear in person to testify about their concerns. As public stewards, you should preserve this opportunity for the public good. We ask that you model a commitment to democracy by encouraging all to speak at board meetings. Anyone and everyone should feel welcome to share their perspectives and concerns. You could allow a 3-minute time limit unless speakers exceed 20. Then there is a 2-minute time limit, which is most consistent with past practice. Thank you.
Good evening, President Bolger, President Gibson, and members of the board. My name is Kevin Steves. I serve as an instructional designer here at Lane. I'm also a co-chair of our AI task force with Shelley, and I co-chair our faculty council with Jerry Meanahan. I'm here tonight as instructional designer to extend a warm and open invitation for each of you to visit us in our Academic Technology Center's Fusion Lab. We recognize that regardless if one adopts or integrates AI or any emerging technologies into their teaching or workflows, we all need to understand its potentials and pitfalls. so that we can support our students navigating this technology that or already has impacted their careers and future goals. The Fusion Lab is a dedicated space for exploring emerging technologies, especially generative AI. It's a place where curiosity is welcomed, experimentation is encouraged, and learning happens together. We've created this space to meet people where they are, whether they're just starting to explore AI or they're diving into how it might change their work or their learning or their teaching. We host regular, about every other week, open labs where there is no agenda. There's no goal other than to help introduce the technology, help answer questions anyone has about it. I lost my space. Okay, many times this is just a conversation where we do not even open a computer and we just have a discussion about AI, its impacts, good and bad, about and how it's impacting learning and teaching. Other times we're trying to prototype AI avatars to provide another way for customers to interact with small business websites. Other times we're creating custom GPTs for students to interact with in various scenarios through voice and conversation interactions. Other times we're grappling with how do we preserve critical thinking and academic integrity. We have very honest and courageous conversations about how AI is already impacting learning and teaching, good and bad. It's a polarizing topic with all stakeholder groups on either side of the fence of that. This is a community effort and AI is continually evolving and we adapt and how we adapt needs to remain flexible, and AI literacy begins with curiosity and just an openness to explore. The Fusion Lab is a resource for everyone of the campus community, students, faculty, staff, administration, and community members, board members yourself. So we want to invite you. The following dates, this is all on our lanecc.edu/Fusion Lab. There's a calendar there that will connect you to all these, but April 9th from 10 to 2, there's an open lab. April 15th from 10 to 2. April 23rd, Wednesday, there's actually a special event, AI and OER experimentation. So welcome to join us for that from 3 to 5. May 1st from 1 to 3. May 16th, 10:30 to 12:30. And then May 28th from 12 to 2. Again, this is on lanecc.edu/Fusion Lab. We also welcome appointments by individuals or groups. So if you have specific questions that you're interested in exploring and you just want some time in the lab, we're open to making appointments for you. So just contact us, again, lanecc.edu/Fusion Lab, and we do hope that you'll join us over the spring term. Thank you.
Eric Kim.
Good evening, Lane Community College Board of Education, Dr. Bulger, SGA President Gibson. My name's Eric Kim. I teach psychology in the social science division. I'm here to talk about how psychology and the social sciences help students achieve through their goal statements. Success in school, work, or personal life is a combination of multiple behaviors. The more you practice these behaviors, they become spontaneous and easier. How we think about our goals in life can increase or decrease success. Good goals should be set slightly above your skill level. Goals that are too easy or too hard may undermine your motivation to pursue them. Good goals should be described in terms of what you will do. These are called positive goal statements. Bad goals are described in terms of what you won't do. These are called negative goal statements. Examples of negative goal statements are, I won't run with scissors. I won't sleep in. I won't eat junk food. I don't want to be alone. I don't want to lose my job. These describe what you won't do, don't want, or avoid. To improve negative goal statements, turn them into positive goal statements, such as, I will walk with scissors. I will wake up to go to class on time. I will eat more fruits and vegetables. I want to be in a relationship. I want to develop skills to be better at my job. These describe what you will do or move forward. Thinking differently about your goals in a positive manner, what you will do increases the likelihood of success. Recognizing when you are thinking about your goals in a negative manner allows you to change so that you can be more likely to be successful. For example, change I don't want to be alone to I want to be in a relationship. You change from keeping someone from leaving, even if it's a bad relation, to seeking, building, and maintaining good relationships with kindness and generosity. Change I don't want to lose my job to I want to develop skills to be better at my job. You change from being fearful and anxious at work to learning more, being creative, and seeking feedback to help you become better at your job. Positive goal statements provide students another tool to improve the roadmap toward success. Thank you for your time.
Thank you to everyone who provided public testimony. That is the conclusion of public comment. We will be moving on to the report section of the board agenda. The first report is the president's report.
And good evening, everyone. Well, this week starts the spring term. We started on Monday, and enrollment is up again for this term. Our official numbers will be available in a few weeks. I also want to take an opportunity to say how exciting it was for the first day of the term. It was really exciting to see the students and the faculty, but it was particularly exciting to see our colleagues going out to greet the students. That was really quite exciting for us. Well, last week was spring break. It was also my pleasure to visit the Eugene City Club, where I had a chance to give updates about Lane Community College. I'd been at the City Club 2 years before that, and I had a surprise. And there was a person in line who asked a question, but also pulled out of his pocket an envelope, a sealed envelope, and handed it to me for students. It was a contribution to our scholarships, and we're really, really delighted to receive that as well. Later next week, we're going to take a contingent of faculty to Nashville, Tennessee for something called the American Association for Community Colleges Conference. It's our national conference. We're going to be showcasing innovation here at Lane. We are supporting community college students, and I'm looking forward to bringing a report back to the board and to our college community about the learnings that we have from that event. And so that's my report.
Thank you, Dr. Bulger. The next report on the agenda is from the Student Government Association. Sophie, will you please provide the report?
Yeah, good evening, everybody. And first and foremost, I just want to say that public comment was great, and I'm really, really happy to hear all of the positive things people have to say. So thank you. So obviously we've been on pause last week for spring break, which was much needed for every student. So that was nice. But we've been doing a couple of things that I'm really excited to share. One is we met with Mary Smith, who works with the advising people over in Building 1 to kind of collaborate on how to get students up to date on Navigate 360 and how to maneuver and use that system. So she'll be joining us at our Spring Festival event, which will be happening here in a month or so, which we've collaborated with Council of Clubs on throwing. So that's very excited. We're looking forward to the collaboration, not only with Council of Clubs, but also the college. Shout out to Facilities and Public Safety for helping. We're also ongoing with elections. So, our terms will be coming to an end. So we are now going to be voting on April 11th for new members for next year's Senate. Not only have we been working on the fun things, we've also been meeting and talking about the grade appeal policy and trying to submit some public comments about that policy. So let's see. Not only that, but we're having a basketball event on April 17th. We'll be like a 3-on-3 fast tournaments with winners. That'll be in the gym. And then we are also looking forward to collaboration with the Black Student Union, BSU, to do a dance that's also going to be held in Center Building coming up this month. So look out for that. And more recently, like today recently, I held a tuition event where I gave an informational session about the tuition increase and invited students to come and make public comment. So thank you, Johnny, for coming over here to make public comment. So we'll talk more about that later, but thank you.
Thank you, Sophie. The next report is from LCCEA. Adrian, will you please provide the LCCEA report?
Good evening, members of the board, President Bulger, Sophie.
I'm going to be reporting on a few topics. The first one is the public comment limitations that are proposed on your agenda. I provided a letter as well as a memo with a legal analysis about those proposed restrictions and wanted to share just a few highlights. Notably, we're very concerned that the proposed restrictions are unconstitutional, both under the Oregon and U.S. constitutions. The restrictions, if implemented, would also likely result in violations of state law protecting public employee unions. In addition to these legal issues, it's important to note that restrictions that unnecessarily reduce or limit the time allotted and number of speakers contravene the public interest and the critical role of the governing body for a public institution. I ask that you honor the critical importance of public fora in our broader democracy and welcome divergent viewpoints by hearing all voices. It is critical to provide ample opportunities for campus and community stakeholders to make public comment as you help guide the institution and so that together we can continue to strive for excellence in service of our students and community beyond. Importantly, as an institution of higher education, the free exchange of ideas is central to our mission and to the quintessential function of our beloved community college. Freedom of expression and academic freedom are important bulwarks against authoritarianism and are a bedrock for our democracy, all the more important in the current national political climate. A couple of other unrelated topics I'll be addressing, and I encourage you to read more details from the legal memo about the public comment restrictions. I wanted to share some updated data. I have provided data on faculty workloads and salary comparisons recently and wanted to share some updated data. Chemeketa Community College faculty recently reached a new contract, and just since last month, LCC has fallen further behind the state average for lab rates. So these are the instructional rates for faculty members who are teaching any type of lab class that is not only in the science, but it could be in health professions, advanced technology. Kelly Mathers, who you heard earlier today, in automotive, for example. In addition, among our comparator community colleges for full-time faculty salaries, we are now dead last among the comparator community colleges, and you'll find additional details in my report. In addition, we're concerned about disinvestment in faculty. According to information provided by the LCC Budget Office, faculty salaries have increased across, at the aggregate, the total amount that the college spends over the past 2 years by 7%, while management salaries have increased by 35% from $5.5 million in FY24 to $6.5 this year and $7.5 projected for next year. I wanted to share some of the things that our association colleagues are engaged in. We're going to be participating in the National Day of Action again this year on April 17th. Together with campuses and organizations throughout the U.S., we're going to highlight the critical role of higher education for the public good and take action to support our colleges, students, and communities. Last year, more than 110 campuses participated, and we are taking action for worker autonomy, the freedom to teach and learn, the value of dissent, wall-to-wall unionization in higher ed, education as a civil right, and recognition of the power of a strike. In addition, we are going to be very busy and continue to be busy during the legislative session here in Salem. We're joining colleagues from throughout the state, universities and colleges for Higher Education Lobby Day next week, and we'll be continuing to advocate for additional funding for the CCSF, the $920 million we're all asking for, pay parity for part-time faculty, which would be funded by the state, and we do encourage the LCC board to take a more progressive position on that. And in addition, we're going to be advocating for increased funding for the Oregon Opportunity Grant, needs-based funding for students, as well as support for basic needs navigators. Last but not least, I'm going to share an update regarding campus climate and BIPOC faculty retention. As many of you know, I typically like to end my report on a positive note. Unfortunately, this one is not a positive note, and I'm asking that you please hear and listen and that you take action. I've provided multiple reports over the past 2+ years in July of 2022, November 23, June and July of 2024, as well as numerous written communications to the Board of Education regarding concerns about campus climate And I'll follow up to share a number of those communications from our Racial Equity and Social Justice Committee as well. I'm deeply saddened to report today that yet another full-time faculty member from a historically oppressed racial and ethnic group has resigned from LCC suddenly in March, specifically citing working conditions and retaliation by the administration for their advocacy for DEI as factors in their decision. The faculty member is a young, brilliant, early career educator who should have had decades more to contribute to this institution. So this loss is particularly impactful. Since July of 2022, 5 full-time faculty who identify as members of racial or ethnic minorities have resigned or retired earlier than planned from LCC, citing working conditions and their experience as BIPOC faculty as a factor in their decision to separate. Among them, at least 2 of these 5 full-time faculty who chose to separate explicitly cited retaliation from upper administration that they had personally experienced as the primary factor in their decision to leave LCC. Notably, these faculty indicated they experienced retaliation after advocating for DEI, advocating for their rights or the rights of other BIPOC faculty, and or expressing constructive criticism of upper administration, particularly around DEI issues. With fewer than 200 full-time faculty, this significantly impacts faculty diversity and ultimately our campus climate and service to students. In comparison, over a 15-year period, from 2007 to June of 2022, 6 faculty who identify as people of color or racial or ethnic minorities separated for similar reasons, according to our records and exit interviews. This takes place against the backdrop of the Gallup survey results of all employees from June of 2024, where the results for LCC ranked in the 5th percentile on the statement, "If I raised a concern about ethics and integrity, I am confident my employer would do what is right." The 6th percentile on "I trust my institution to be fair to everyone," and the 8th percentile on "Everyone at this institution is treated fairly regardless of individual differences, such as ethnic background, race, age, disability, sexual orientation, gender, or gender identity." Again, I'll follow up and share the additional data and memoranda that we have been providing from the LCCEA Racial Equity and Social Justice Committee over the course of 2+ years to the Board of Education. And let me just please say this plainly. I'm asking that you take action. Thank you.
Thank you. The final report is from LCCEF. Ryan, will you please provide the LCCEF report?
Good evening, Board of Education, President Bolger, President Gibson. I wanted to come in person for my first stint up here, if you will, as president, kind of to introduce myself a little bit more in person. Also to kind of highlight a little bit more of the connection I have with this college overall. To start, my father was a student here back in the 70s. He was a diesel technician, ended up doing very well here and going on to become very, very respectful in the diesel world and as a mechanic, and spent the last 18 years working in La Pine for the ODOT road crew and did very well, was very highly respected there. I also was a student here back in 97 and 98. I thought that I was a computer science type person until I realized that programming was not my forte. So due to that and some other things that went on, I went in a different direction to serve in the Air Force, which I highlighted in the introductory letter that I sent to all of you. The second thing I want to bring up, we, the union, are about to open contract negotiations again with the college. We're going to start that next week. We have April 9th, we are going to be sitting down with the college for the first time to lay out ground rules and decide through the bargaining agreement reopener, the economic sides, and then the extra +1, as they call it, to decide what we're going to do, which will be the COLA, the step pay levels, insurance premiums, possible Section 125 benefits, and still deciding what the extra critical thing that we're going to negotiate on. Lastly, I want to touch on the classification and compensation study that we have going on right now. We're about 3 to 4 months in, and we are currently just coming out of the first phase of the project, which is the initiation phase, and switching gears into the collection assessment and position description phase that we have tentatively set to go through June right now to start looking deeply into job descriptions with the classified staff to see kind of where we sit and what changes or possible adaptations we can make to some people's job descriptions to make it a little bit more fair across the board based on, we've heard that there are some people that have said that their job descriptions do not fit what they do. So that is all I have for this time. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Welcome, Brian.
We will be moving on to the adoption of the consent agenda. Are there any changes to be made to the consent agenda? I see Austin.
Oh, Denise can go first. Go ahead.
I was just moving the mic.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, I was going to ask that we remove board policy 275 interfund loans.
Okay. And then I'm going to ask that we also pull mandatory fees. I have a quick question about that. Okay. Can we go ahead and approve the consent agenda with those two changes?
I approve the consent agenda with those two removals.
You move.
We're making a motion, right?
Yeah, I think you see you made a motion to approve with those two items removed.
Yep, exactly.
And I second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And all opposed, no. Okay, that passes unanimously. Do you want to speak to board policy 275?
Absolutely. Just a quick question in regards to 275. My understanding that because I was looking through the union contract, was the employee retirement benefit fund, is any or part of that part of the collective bargaining agreement? Has that been a bargained fund?
So the benefit is bargain.
Yeah, okay.
The benefit that provides a subsidy towards health insurance is bargain. Yes.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. Okay, that was kind of my primary question. I will say that I will vote no on this one because there's I think some complications with collective bargaining, and especially with interfund loans. So I'm just wanted to indicate that I'll be voting no on this board policy change.
Any other discussion on this item? I have a follow-up question. So if we were to not have an eighth quarter payment come in, would we be taking that loan out in the eighth quarter of that year or in the first quarter of the next year?
The years that have the eighth quarter payment, which this year would be one of those, you would be taking out a loan in May or June.
So then that next fiscal year requirement would be for the following fiscal year. I'm just making sure they would get the loan taken out in June, July, and they'd be not paid back for a full year. I personally would like stronger guardrails around this. So I'm also going to be voting no, though I expect it will still pass. With that, I think, is there a motion to approve this item as written or to change it?
Approve. I'm sorry.
Board policy 275.
I thought we pulled it.
Right, but so we still would then, it would turn into an action item, I think, where we would vote on it up or down rather than consenting.
Right.
Yeah, I don't approve of it, so I, if it's pulled and we're going.
There's not quite a motion on the table. I think that's the next step.
Does anyone want to make that motion?
Sure, I move we approve BP 275.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, any discussion?
Well, I'll just discuss it briefly. I wasn't, I thought that when we had discussed this and reviewed this at the work session 2 weeks ago, that we had worked through all of the issues. So I hadn't prepared any kind of statement in favor of it because I'm a little surprised at this point that there's a potential controversy. But my understanding from memory is that it merely gives us the flexibility to make some choices. It doesn't require us to take a loan from any particular fund. There are several funds that we could take loans from. And of course, when and if that time comes, we could decide to put additional guardrails in place. We could decide not to take money from a particular fund. So this is just giving us the flexibility to do interloan, to do those transfers, and with the understanding that they generally save the college money in the long run because of the cost of those transactions to do those with the private sector. So I'll be voting in support of it, and I hope my fellow board members will reconsider, given the flexibility built into the policy.
I've got Julie and then Denise.
So I'm under the impression that, this is just a cleanup of the policy, getting some policy language. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, please, but I believe that the policy that has currently been approved and on the books gives the finance department the authority to actually do this. And the new language is just kind of actually improving the language. So correct me if I'm wrong.
I think that is incorrect, Julie. The current language does not currently allow funds transfers loans from the retirement fund. That's being added to the new policy, which is what's being voted on tonight.
Chair Mulholland, if I could just check in with Kara on that. Kara, could you clarify?
Yeah, yes, I can clarify. The policy adds language that would allow the flexibility for the board to approve an interfund loan that would include the early retirement fund, but it does have to be board approved either way.
Denise.
It's because I think the discussions that we've been having, and I believe Trustee Mattel's summary of it is quite accurate, that we've had discussion on it because of the newness, because it now includes the retirement fund and opening up that door. So I understand that the protections include that the board will have a final say and that there will be only certain conditions. But I am moved by the testimony given today, and also the potential conflict with collective bargaining agreements, which is not an area we need to get into at all. I think the reason why this has been a line in the sand, okay, it is in order not to be in a situation in which we would have to make any decisions that would cross over into an early retirement fund. That is kind of a non-starter for many people.
So when we discussed this 2 weeks ago, there was basically two options on the table. The current option says that the board would adopt a timeline for repayment and a rate of interest, and that the loan would have to be repaid the following year, in the following fiscal year. I had put forward an alternative that would have meant that the loans could only be taken from the early retirement fund for purposes of covering the 8th quarter payment, and that would have to be repaid, I believe I said within 30 days of receiving the state 8th quarter payment, when that gets made up, or within the first quarter. I don't recall exactly. So what I guess I would ask is of my colleagues is, would that alternative be acceptable, or should we come back to this in 2 weeks for a longer discussion when maybe we can get some additional questions answered regarding contractual requirements or any other questions that board members may have?
Point of order, we have a motion and a second on the table.
Okay, if you would like, if discussion is over, we can go ahead and move to the vote. I was just trying to make sure we got through all of our discussion first.
So I'm going to reveal the extent to which I don't fully understand Robert's rules of order, but nonetheless, I think at this point in time, if we were to proceed, we would stalemate at a 0.33. That's my sense of where this is headed. And I don't know what happens in that case, but I worry that we would not be allowed to bring this, the same or similar motion, the same, a revised version of 275 back a month from now. So my preference would be, given where we find ourselves now, is to pull back from the stated motion, bring this to the next work session, try to see if we can work through whatever remaining concerns there are so that it can come back to the board in a consent agenda item a month from now, just given where we are.
Thank you, Trustee Mattel. I rescind my motion.
Is that accepted?
Accepted by me.
Seconder. Okay, we will bring this up again in our mid-April meeting, and hopefully we can get to a consensus point and get it onto the consent calendar for next month.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
With regards to mandatory fees, can we pull up a screenshot of those for a moment, please?
Is that the slide? The
It's a PDF or it's in the board. The consent agenda for that item. Oh, this is the the mandatory. Oh, am I at the wrong spot?
Fees on the consent agenda.
Okay, so my question was about the online course fee. So that's a $10 per credit fee. It sounds like we only charge that to online courses. Am I following correctly? Okay. Does it cost us more to provide an online course or an in-person course? And I guess, is there an equivalent charge to in-person courses, or are we charging more for online courses?
Yes, there are. Yeah, there are. So we have a technology fee that's $14 per credit. That's also capped per term, and I can't think of what it is off the top of my head. But then for online courses, that is assessed for hybrid or online version of courses. In addition to that, so there's separate fees. As far as what does it cost the college to? Are you asking what does it cost the college to, or
Does it generally
cost a student?
Does it generally cost the college more to offer online or in-person classes? Do we have a sense of that?
The faculty costs are the same. I'm looking at Shelley. There's no differential in pay. It would be,
My understanding, and I could be wrong, is that it's to help pay for the infrastructure to offer those courses.
Okay, so the technology
Correct.
costs money.
Technology costs money, and and historically, when the college was developing these programs, then those fees were assessed. I can say that most, even students who are enrolled in person do often use our learning management, our online learning management system, because it's become just part of the experience for the students to be using those technologies for all courses.
Yeah, if online courses were cheaper for us to provide, then it just struck me as a little odd if we were charging extra money.
Generally, but I can just say generally, online courses are not a bargain. They do have additional costs. Now, can I say exactly for our courses here at Lane? No, I would need to do an analysis, but there's often this assumption that online is cheaper. It is not. It is often, it can be more expensive.
I think I saw, Austin, do you have your hand?
Oh,
raised?
yeah, I was just going to make a motion to approve, but so with that, I make a motion to approve the mandatory fees per the April 2nd, 25 document.
I'll second.
Okay, was there any other discussion?
Well, I had a question
Yeah,
only,
Steve,
just since we're asking, Shelley, I didn't otherwise have questions, but since we're talking about it now, I presume one of the principles that you all use to develop these fees is to reduce to the extent possible cross subsidies across between these fees so that students who are doing, X only are not paying more and otherwise subsidizing students who might be doing, whatever different things.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
I don't understand what a one-time credit enrollment fee is.
Oh.
We've got a
That
motion
was-
on the table, I believe.
Oh,
that's
true.
Well,
Well, this is quite, it's a
once
question.
discussion is over, we'll do the vote. So I think it's a fairly easy question. I know the answer if no one else wants to say.
You can tell me later. It's okay.
When people first enroll, they're paying a fee, which means that it's harder for, we're getting less fraudulent applications by charging that one-time enrollment fee upfront.
That's the
Yeah.
application.
Let me, just to add a clarification, you are correct, but that applies to the application deposit, which is applied to the student if they come to the college. The one-time credit enrollment fee is if a new student applies to the college, they pay the one-time fee that goes to pay for some of it goes for testing. There's 2 or 3 things that helps pay for.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion is on the table. I think if we could just, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And all opposed, nay. And that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay. We'll be moving to the action items of our agenda. The first action item for tonight is a motion to rescind. So I requested that this be added to the April 2nd board agenda. In December, we had a board meeting where we interviewed a number of candidates. Unfortunately, we were not able to reach a consensus. Board member Fullneggy brought back a motion to rescind the following month. And I think things had not really changed in terms of board perspectives. And so I said I was not going to support that motion at that time. Here we are a few months later. I think that the facts on the ground have changed. At this moment in time, there is only one applicant for the open board position for the election this May. I think I would like to ask my fellow board members if we could come together and ideally unanimously support the appointment of this very well qualified candidate to the board. I think that the board has a responsibility to fill this open board position. We've seen at the state legislature, there's actually been a bill that would make it so that if community college boards don't appoint a replacement within 90 days, it would get kicked to the county commissions. And I think that if we don't show that we can be responsible board members and fulfill our duties and fill vacant board positions, that we're going to have that responsibility taken out of our hands. So I would ask for a second for this motion. And I would ask that my board members would unanimously support it. So I would move that we rescind the decision to indefinitely postpone an appointment to the Zone 7 vacancy.
I second that.
Thank you. And discussion, I see Kevin.
I'd like to bring a concern to the board. And I'll start out by saying I acknowledge the time and effort that the board chair puts into leading the board. That said, I have some concerns about the process by which the board agenda was developed. So the board chair is making good on his promise to create and change agendas as he sees fit. Specifically, the board chair unilaterally added the item motion to rescind without input from the board, as far as I'm aware of as vice chair, or collaboration with the president. As a governing body, a public body, it's important that we work collaboratively and follow our established governance practices to ensure all perspectives are considered. When unilateral decisions are made, it can create a sense of exclusion among the board members, reduce transparency, and ultimately reduce the board's effectiveness of our collective leadership. I'm very concerned that the board chair is misusing his leadership position and is in conflict with board policies and operating agreements. Thank you.
Question.
Hmm.
Can I ask?
Please.
I noticed an email that everyone received making notification of this agenda item. I don't know if others commented on it. Did everyone see that email? Okay,
Yeah.
I'm checking.
Austin.
Absolutely. I understand. But so let me just start off here. So this has been a board conversation. In the last board meeting, we removed this item from the board. Remove the motion from the board so that we can continue conversations around it. In fact, one of my things that I said when I removed this is, hey, let's keep talking because we do need to provide representation to our community, to the district, and we cannot keep denying them representation like this. So this conversation has been ongoing and has continued. And the situation it now allows that, there's no, there's not a competitive race here. We have an opportunity to give a board member more time to be onboarded onto this board as a colleague. We are, which is concerns that, Julie, you mentioned, you being on this board and having, needing more time in time in general to, get used to the policies and procedures and the process and so forth. This is an opportunity to give a board member that time. So overall, there has been discussions, not only in a public meeting, and I'm really glad to hear that there was a meeting between you, the president, and the board chair. And again, I do want to stress the importance that our actions have consequences. Preventing representation to our district has consequences, and we need to rectify that the lack of action that we took back in that December meeting.
Not seeing anyone else for first round. Oh wait, now I'm seeing people. Did you want to go? Sophie, and then I see Julie.
This is a really large conversation, and like you said, it does transcend just this room and the people here. It's really important to think about how we impact students, not only like I've mentioned at the December meeting in a trickle-down effect, but also directly that this is a big decision. And I understand that the board is split down the middle. 3 people often vote one way and 3 people often vote another way. And anybody who comes to the board meetings can see it. And so I find it a little bit concerning to vote on a member, now the one member left, that may sway votes one way or the other. I just don't think it's fair to not leave it up to our constituents of the board and just keep it to just the board members now. I understand that it's been mentioned that it's our responsibility to do so, but overall, it's our responsibility to serve our constituents and not to be biased, which happens. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that. And again, say again, like I did in the December meeting, that to properly serve the people of the community, we have to think about our personal agendas and put them aside in order to come together to support not only one another in the room, but the people who go to college here.
Julie, you're next.
So, it's been 3 months since the motion to suspend was passed, indefinitely was passed, rather, I should say. And at this moment, I'm still uncomfortable appointing someone to the board close to an election, which is what I said before. But now it's 3 months later, and we are now 47 days to an election. The voter pamphlets will be mailed in 26 days. The ballots will be mailed in 31 days. And this is when most of the voters in this entire county will learn who is actually running and which candidates in the 4 seats that are open at the moment, 2 open seats and 2 incumbent seats. In July, we could potentially have 4 new trustees. If the 2 incumbent seats, mine included, and Trustee Fulnegi's. But we won't know the outcome of that until the election results are posted. No outcome is ever guaranteed. So with only 47 days left until May 20th, I don't want to send a signal to voters that their vote doesn't matter, even if it's for someone that's running unopposed. nothing's guaranteed. So at this particular moment on the motion to rescind, I am not in favor of moving forward at this time.
Steve, I think it's your first round.
Thank you. I just want to acknowledge Jesse Maldondo's in the room. Jesse, I want to speak to you directly for a moment and then explain the reason for my vote. I read your paperwork back in November, whatever it was, when you submitted. It's very impressive. I'm looking, and I expect that you will be elected. You're running unopposed, and I look forward to working with you when you are elected. And I'm really sorry that this situation tonight potentially creates division. So what I'm really trying to say to you right now is I hope you can let that go and we can have a positive start in at June, I suppose, when you would otherwise first be seated. I'm going to vote against the motion tonight, not because of anything that Jesse represents or doesn't represent. I don't know him yet. I'm looking forward to get to know him and working with him. He brings a lot of experience and diversity, and that's going to be good for the board. But I do fear that other agendas are at work here. And for that reason, I'm not going to participate or I'm not going to support the motion tonight to allow, as Sophie said, a 4-3 split, which might then empower a faction of the board to move forward with certain items that the full board is not supportive of. So that's, I think, what's ultimately going on. And we'll just have to wait for the election to play out.
Thank you, fellow board members. I'm going to go ahead and weigh in with just a first set of responses. I don't think there are any good reasons not to appoint Jesse tonight. I think he's a very well qualified candidate, as one of my colleagues who said he's going to vote against this motion just stated, that there isn't a good reason to keep this very well qualified candidate off the board, except to try to maintain a split vote, if that's the goal of certain members of the board. Again, I think we have the responsibility to the public to fulfill our role here. And I will just, in response to the statement at the beginning from Vice Chair Altucker, I want to be clear. As chair, any board member of this board has the right under Robert's rules to make a motion in front of this board. Okay? If a board member requests of the chair to add a motion to the agenda that is timely and does not on its face have any issues, I will approve that motion to be added to the agenda. If you want to make a motion, I will add it to the agenda unless there's something wrong with it. I think that that makes sense because that is the way that we as a public board should operate. If we're going to have, if a board member wants to bring a discussion item, that the chair should approve adding that to the agenda in a timely way, and that then we can discuss it as a board in an open public body. There seems to be an issue here in that I was the one that made the request to myself, and I can see that my vice chair really didn't like that. But let's be clear that I am going by our established procedures, which is that any board member can make a request to add a motion to the agenda, and that the chair can add that item to the agenda. It seems to be, again, it seems to be a problem and that the motion came from myself and was approved by myself. I can understand that concern, but I just want to be clear that if any board member has an agenda item, a motion that they would like to add to the agenda, unless there's something wrong with it or it's not timely, I'm going to add it to the agenda. And I think that you should appreciate that of your chair. Thank you. Steve.
I think there might be some factual errors with that, but I also feel like the best thing for us to do is to close out this vote and then perhaps ask staff to help us at a subsequent work session get clear about the statements you just made. I can think of at least, I'm not certain that I'm correct, neither am I certain about Robert's rules. So, but I do have concerns about that procedure that I think are best worked out in a work session next month or thereafter. But nonetheless, I think we have a motion.
Well, we do have it right in front of us, printed right here. Board members can request items to be placed on an upcoming agenda at the end of a board meeting with the agreement of at least 3 board members via email to the chair and president or via work session poll. So any board member can make that request. Yes, please.
I'm not sure that this has to do with the agenda item, though. This is kind of getting into the nitty gritty and it's not addressing the actual thing that we're supposed to be talking about right now.
Point of order taken. Thank you. Austin.
To the topic at hand. My fellow board members, I'm really sad about this. Steve, I know Jesse. Jesse is, he's going to take this obviously in a professional way. He's obviously not going to hold grudges and stuff like that, but we shouldn't have to put him in a position where he would even need to, my fellow board members. My fellow board members, this is our next colleague. This is our next colleague. And we want to open the door for our colleague. We want to invite them to the table. We want more people at this table, not less. We need to onboard our new board members because of the challenges that we're facing in higher education, not only at a federal level, but also at a statewide level. Our community needs us. Our community needs representation. I said before in a previous board meeting that everybody who votes gets 3 representatives, 2 at large and 1 for their district. Right now, every one of our voters has only 2 representatives. And I've even heard some of you even speak in support of Jesse in groups and in public meetings or in public, large public groups saying that you would support Jesse. And again, Jesse, I'm sorry that you're being put into this situation. You don't deserve this. The community doesn't deserve this. And I implore my fellow board members, please, please, please reconsider.
Sophie, and then we will move on.
I'm gonna say, this just seems a little shady to me as a student. I feel like it's just not transparent enough to me as not just a board member, but also as someone who stands in the college and goes to class and feels the effect of different policies and things. It just doesn't seem clear enough to me, and that's why I'm expressing the feelings that I've expressed and the facts I think that I've expressed.
Thank you. I'd like to go to a roll call vote, please.
Kevin Alltucker,
Nay.
Denise Diamond,
Yay.
Austin Volnaghi,
Yes.
Steve Mattel,
Nay.
Zach Mulholland,
Yes.
Julie Weisman.
Nay.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thank you.
Nice that we take a 5-minute break.
Yeah.
Is that acceptable to the board?
Yes, please.
Okay. Reconvene at 15 till 9 o'clock, please. Okay, thanks very much, everyone. We are back in session. The next item on the agenda is the baseball field contract. The recommended action is to approve the contract. I am going to make the strong recommendation that we actually delay approving this contract by 2 months. And the two reasons that I'll state, the first is that the Sustainability Committee is still finalizing its recommendation to the board, which will not come until late May. The second reason is that I've been informed that we are potentially going to be looking at cuts to incredibly important community programs as soon as next month. And given that we are looking at extreme $2 million annual losses for the foreseeable future, and that we don't have a good sense of how we're going to balance our budget next year, what our state funding allocation is going to be, as well as the potential for cutting really valuable community programs that we as a board have not gotten the opportunity to discuss as a board yet. It is my strong request that we delay this item for 2 months.
Mr.
And
Chair.
I make that motion. If it is seconded,
Mr. Chair.
we will discuss. Thank you. Is there a second? If there's not a second, then we will move on.
I'll
Mr.
second
Chair.
for the purpose of discussion.
Thank you.
Point of order,
Any
Mr. Chair.
discussion? I see Kevin in line for discussion. Thank you.
Can we have the staff report presented
There's a
before?
staff report.
I'm looking at the agenda. There is a presentation.
No, there's not.
I'm sorry, there is.
I think he's referring to this part here.
Yeah, no, my script here says to ask for a motion. I'm asking for a different motion, and I made the motion and it's been seconded. So I think we should discuss the motion on the table, which is to delay this vote for 2 months.
Can I ask a different kind of question?
Yes, please.
Okay, what I noticed on the contract was that there were significant, maybe a page and a half, if I am correct, of exclusions. The contract does not include, and then there was at least a page and a half. So my question would be, do we have any sense of how much the cost of the exclusions are? There are things from permits, there's just a big, long list of things, and it is a cost factor. And I was wondering about that.
Does anyone want to respond to Denise's
Chair.
question?
I believe that, Vice Chair.
I'm asking if anyone wants to respond to Denise's question, then I will move on to Kevin, and then I will move on to Steve. I take it there's no responses to Denise's question?
We certainly are available and here to respond to any questions.
Would you like to repeat your question, Denise?
I was just wondering if there's a cost estimate approximation for the, I don't know, there's maybe 20 exclusion things like many contracts have, but it was a lot of things not included in the bid.
Right.
If you're looking at this page, that these were Xed out, these were alternates proposed and looked at that we are not taking. That is, they're not exclusions. If you're looking at the contract conditions at the end,
Yeah, that's what I was, not the.
those are typical things, permits. We've
Right.
paid few $100s. We have, we've paid design fees, if we hit some sort of unusual condition underground, which might happen, no, we can't identify what that cost is. We have contingencies budgeted, as a good construction manager should. That's the best I can do.
Okay.
I have Kevin and then Steve.
Mr. Chair, if there's no presentation, why does last name with a 10-minute agenda item appear on the agenda?
Because I requested this be moved from a consent item to a action item so that we would have time to discuss and approve it rather than just consenting.
I believe this is a continued misuse of your position as chair.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Steve.
I'm confused.
I'm confused.
I'm looking at action 5B. Right, so we've just completed 5A, motion to rescind. I see 5B next, baseball field construction contract. Kara Flath, 10 minutes. Our standard procedure would be in this situation for the staff presentation to proceed to, kind of summarize where we are with this situation, review where the changes made since the work session, et cetera. And at the conclusion of that, there would, maybe be some questions, et cetera, and then a vote. But to supersede that with, with a motion just feels like a process.
I just want to be clear.
Zach, I'm
Sorry, sorry. I apologize. I was going to respond, but yes, I'm sorry. I apologize. Go ahead.
I'm mostly done, but I'll just finish. Like, it just feels like our standard process is to, follow the agenda as approved by the board. And I don't think we made any changes to this particular one.
Unfortunately, our agenda planning meeting got cut short. And so I actually did not approve this item. I asked that it get moved to this action item so that we could have this discussion. There's a recommended motion. I was supposed to go straight to that, but I'm making a different motion. It's been seconded. And I think we should discuss the alternative motion I put on the table, vote it up or down, and then move on.
So you're saying that you want to continue with a motion and an action without hearing the presentation?
There was no presentation.
But I don't understand why you keep saying that. It's right here. And
We have a lot of confusion around that.
I mean, I'm sorry, my little script here doesn't say anything about recognizing.
But ours is different. And that's the confusion. I'm walking in here expecting to hear a 10-minute presentation.
It was 10 minutes for us to talk about it. There was never going to be a presentation. That was never part of it.
But it has, I mean.
Name. That's where the confusion is.
This is the piece of paper I was handed along, I think with everybody else. One of the first things we did at the beginning of the evening, like we do every time we meet, is approve the agenda. I looked down at my sheet, everybody looked at their sheet. We approved this agenda.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're now talking about the baseball fields, and there was a recommended motion to approve the contract, and I've made an alternative motion that's been seconded.
Good.
If we get past it, if it gets voted down, we'll move on to the original motion. Austin.
Thank you. I seconded this so we can have a board discussion and about the actual topic at hand. So I'm going to ask questions. Tom, I know you have the answers to this. I appreciate your the previous answer you gave me, which is that if we were to hold this till June, that
contract's no longer valid. The proposal is no longer valid. We would lose our time frame in production for the materials with our subcontractors. We're scheduled to start next week.
Perfect. Thank you.
By the end of the month.
Thank you for the additional details. And that's what I was kind of hoping for in that previous question. A second question, if I may, Tom, thank you. And again, I really appreciate all your work and your staff's work on this. And I appreciate your patience as the board discusses this. Thank you. The second question I have, we made a determination in regards to, or we had a discussion last board meeting about the sustainability committee, which would bring out a report in May. That is for future projects, and that is not for this current existing project. Is that correct?
Trustee Volneggi, I'm going to have Vice President Flath actually respond to that.
Oh, yeah, 100%, 100%. Yeah, I did that. I was kind of, sorry, aiming in that direction. Yeah.
Yes, you are correct. Their purview is to look at future focused projects. And if I can add one clarification, this particular project was already approved by the board in the bond projects fund. This has no relation to any general fund appropriations. It's been budgeted out of the bond fund. It's been approved in the bond fund, but not for moving it forward. We will not have a place to play in the fall.
Gotcha. Understood. Thank you so much.
I see Julie, and then I see Kevin.
Yeah, I don't know why we're having this debate. Why the bond is paying for this. We've already approved it. This is just an action that is going to harm this organization, this institution, the board, everything. I don't understand where we're at with this. Why we would even be considering a postponement when you know absolutely full well, contract's over, it kills the football, I mean, the baseball field, which sounds like that's your intention. And so absolutely not in favor, gonna vote no, 100% over and over and over again.
Kevin, you're up.
Yeah, I just want to point out that this issue has been a personal issue for the chair, and I think this is an effort to fulfill his wish to kill the project and a misuse of his chairmanship position.
I appreciate those perspectives. Not seeing anyone else in the queue, I will just make my quick statement. We'll move on to a vote. Again, quick two questions that weren't answered in the board. How much do we spend currently on salaries for baseball coaches each year?
Point of order that has nothing to do with this motion that's on the table.
I'd appreciate getting my questions answered.
It has nothing to do with the motion, Chair.
I'd appreciate getting my questions answered. Thank you.
Point of order, you need to actually rule against the point of order.
I think that this is substantial. I think that this is substantive to the discussion and the likely follow-up motion.
Then I appeal the chair's ruling of overturning the point of order.
How many votes does that require?
Majority vote.
Majority
Is that super majority to, okay. All in favor of overturning the chair's ruling that would allow me to ask those questions?
Is it doing a roll or what are we
So,
doing?
sorry. So, I'm sorry. So I had a question. The vice chair has said that that question is inappropriate. There's been a motion to effectively say that that question is inappropriate. So all in favor of saying that those questions are
I'm
inappropriate.
just asking if we're doing this by roll or doing this.
Roll would be great.
So can you explain the effect of a yes vote and an effect of a no vote, please?
An effect of a yes vote would mean that I'm not allowed to ask these questions, and the effect of a no vote would mean that I am allowed to ask these two questions.
Is
I think
there
we're
a
taking
person
roll.
who can,
We're taking roll. You, yes, in favor of Julie's appeal.
okay, I was just, didn't know if we had a Robert's rule person here.
So, yeah.
Okay, Kevin Alltucker,
Yes.
Denise Diamond,
Yes.
Austin Volnaghi,
Yes.
Steve Mattel,
Yes.
Zach Mulholland,
Nay.
Julie Weisman.
Yes.
Okay. We'll go ahead and move on to the vote on the motion at hand. Go ahead and do a roll call vote.
Kevin Alltucker,
Please restate the
The
motion.
motion is to delay 2 months.
Kevin Alltucker,
No.
Denise Diamond,
No.
Austin Volnaghi,
No.
Steve Mattel,
No.
Zach Mulholland,
Yes.
Julie Weisman.
No.
Okay, that motion fails. I'll go ahead and ask for the motion to approve the contract.
I'll make a motion to approve the recommended contract to Field Turf USA. I think that's all I have to say.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, and any discussion? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and ask my questions. How much are we spending annually on baseball coaches?
Point of order, same point of
Same-
order.
Same issue.
Point of order, roll call vote, please. A yes would mean that I'm not allowed to ask questions. A no would mean that I am allowed to ask questions.
Kevin Alltucker,
Yes.
Denise Diamond,
Yes.
Austin Volnaghi,
No.
Steve Mattel,
Yes.
Zach Mulholland,
No.
Julie Weisman.
Yes.
Okay, that passes. I will not ask.
Can I recommend a 5-minute break? We're really melting down here pretty badly in front of a large audience. Can we take a few minutes, take a breather, and then come back to where we are in the agenda?
I think we're about 2 or 3 minutes out from being done from this. I think we're about to vote in just a moment here.
Yeah.
Call the question.
So again, thank you for indulging me in that conversation. Again, I think it's really important that we wait for the sustainability conversation, and even more important that I think we're going to be asked to make really devastating budget cuts this next month. And I think that we should wait to make this decision until that point. And that's all that I have to say. Sophie.
I'm just a little confused because I thought that when we talked last at the work session, everybody seemed to be, on the same page about what one of the members of the sustainability committee said about the turf field. So that's why I'm just a little confused. Not only that, but I think it's in the students' best, interest to move forward with this. Personally, I'm a big opposer, just like you, Chair, about, putting those chemicals into the environment. But after hearing the presentation that Professor Glover presented, I felt a lot more in favor of doing it, especially because it does benefit our student body wholeheartedly. So
Yeah.
the baseball team should be able to have a place to practice.
Austin.
Yeah, and to partially answer your question, one of the reasons why I seconded the motion was so that we could have a broader conversation and answer any additional questions that we had about the baseball field dynamics and so forth. I was disappointed in what the conversation turned into. That being said, I do appreciate the staff answering my questions, and I appreciate your patience, especially as the board discusses this. Again, let's. Yeah, I also felt like that conversation definitely went against some of our main aspects of our governance, the decision-making, conduct, and communication and collaboration and so forth. But which is informative to me in as a board member of how we can better practice this document that we signed. That being said, I'm going to be voting yes on this measure. And yeah, I thank you for what conversations we were able to have. Thank you.
So if you could please do a roll call vote.
Kevin Alltucker,
Yes.
Right now, sorry, I'm confused.
We're voting on the,
Yeah,
we're voting to
I
approve.
lost track of what.
We are
we had.
voting
Yeah.
to approve the contract.
Kevin Alltucker,
Yes.
Denise Diamond,
Yes.
Austin Volnaghi,
Yes.
Steve Mattel,
Yes.
Zach Mulholland,
No.
Julie Weisman.
Yes.
Thank you very much, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and take you up on your suggestion, Steve. Let's have a 5-minute break and then we can come back. And I'm just going to say for our discussion items, I'm going to suggest that we just move those. If anybody has questions about any of the discussion items, we can ask questions, but we'll probably skip the report tonight if that's okay.
All right. Excellent. So come back at 9:10.
Yes, thank you.
We are doing that.
We're going to finish the action. Yeah.
Okay, everyone, we're back.
Okay.
Okay, we're back, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for waiting. The next item is tuition rates. The president, in collaboration with the College Council, is recommending that the board approve a 3.1% increase in tuition rates for the upcoming academic year. Do I have a motion for this action item?
So moved.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Kevin?
Again, are we waiting for the same?
Again, there's no, this is what I've got.
Yeah.
I'm just going by this.
Yeah.
There's a 20-minute, it says, I mean, I don't know. Are we looking at the same?
I'm reading my script here. It told me to ask for a motion. If we would like to have a presentation and discussion first, I'm perfectly open to that.
The agenda.
You want to see mine?
Point of order, point of order. A motion and a second allows for discussion. And that's essentially what happened, was a motion was made and it's seconded, and now there's an opportunity for discussion. We can certainly start this with a discussion, but the presentation is only just 2 pages here, which is in regards to the impact of tuition fees and tuition fee requests. So I would just simply state that we made a motion, there was a second. Thank you, Julie. And now this is an opportunity for discussion. Because it's tuition, I'm assuming, having been in Zach's roles before, he will allocate 20 minutes because it's a really critical topic that merits discussion. Point of order, done.
We'd certainly be happy to give an introduction of this and any background. I think that we've done that, but we can certainly revisit that if you like. Julie Weisman.
Sure. Yeah, Julie.
So, I have a couple questions and just some thoughts about this is, I'm always loath to increase tuition rates at all. I do just kind of fundamentally don't want students carrying the burden of any of our increasing costs on a campus. But I also understand that there's been a pretty good, solid conversation with students and interacting. And I had spoke with President Gibson about, their support and making sure where the students and the student government lead. So I really like to hear from her about this too. So it kind of helps reassure us that we're kind of supporting the right thing and that we're moving in the right direction. But I do have a commitment that I just don't want to have this be a constant thing that we do every year, that I'd like us to look for some kind of creative and alternative solutions for increasing tuition costs. But if I could encourage Sophie to speak on this, I'd appreciate it, especially after she gave a presentation on it this evening.
I have Austin next in the queue.
I would love for Sophie to speak ahead of me if possible.
So, yeah, this is a difficult conversation. I've said that a whole lot of times and everybody kind of is in the same page. So nobody wants to ask students to pay for more, but all of us understand what it means to increase tuition and what it means to stay the same. So I went over that today with a group of students that wanted to come and speak at the board, but because of the time wasn't accessible to them. So, but yeah, so I spoke with students and I presented a lot of information that I get because I get the multiple perspectives from the different conversations, and I understand what it means to students to increase tuition and the cuts that may or may not happen if we don't increase it. And, I used to be against raising tuition because I thought that, that shouldn't be put on the students, like Julie said, but there are things that students need. There are resources that are funded by our tuition that students definitely need. And so I'm on the college council as well, so I got to put my piece in there to the recommendation, and we got it a little bit lowered to the 3.1. And so I think that this is an okay thing. And as I presented this information to students, they were very accepting, actually, of what I had to say when I presented it to them this way. Because nobody wants to see parts of the college get cut. Because students definitely understand the meaning of community. So the 3.1 increase, I think, is fair and just, because I don't want to see, and neither do my fellow students, future students paying for us.
Thank you, Sophie.
Made complete sense to me. Before being on Lane Community College Board, I was on the board of directors with Klamath Community College, and we did not raise tuition 3 of those 4 years that I was on that board. What that cost, not only that institution, but also the faculty, the students, wraparound services, and so forth, we were spreading out way too few resources over way too many. It's almost like spreading very little butter over too much bread, right? And I do not want to see any cuts to student services, to wraparound services. We are needing these services for our students, for the support of the institution as a whole. I am happy to see that it is below the HEPI 3.4% increase, which is essentially the inflation model used for higher education. So overall, I'm going to vote in support of this. I appreciate the student leadership's understanding around this. And yeah, I think that there is, let's see. We are going into uncertain times as well. And this is the other reason why I support this, because we need to be able to have a budget that's able to pivot, that's able to be flexible so that we can continue to serve our community and our students. So with that and all those considerations and my past experience, I'm going to vote yes on this.
Kevin's next.
I have 2 questions. One speaks directly to the motion, and the other one I hope to get answered at some point. The question I had that speaks to the motion is a question to Kara. I believe LCC currently has the highest tuition per credit hour of all community colleges in the state. Not by much, but we're the highest. If 3.1 were to be approved, do you have any sense about where that would put us in the tuition ranking?
I believe if my counterparts are moving forward with that they said we would be the second highest.
Okay. All right. And then part of my, I appreciate the comments about this issue. And part of my brain is thinking, well, I don't want to balance our budget on the backs of students ever. We do have increased cost. Yes, this is one of the ways that we can recoup revenue. Yes. I'm wondering if there would be value in a lower suggested, a lower tuition rate below 3.1.
Just to add some context on this, every 1% is estimated to be $187,000 in revenue for the college. So that essentially equates to majority of our expenses and our growth, especially if we continue growing, is in staff. So that's just over 1.1 people. So even if we go down to like 1.5%, the gap there is about 467,000. So we would have 3.5 less people that we could build into the budget for next year, if that adds. So from a finance perspective, it's a delicate balance between what you would add for tuition and what you would add for staff. What I do see, working with all my counterparts here at the table, is there is a lot of need and a lot of projects for it to get done, and a lot of faculty we do need to have on staff to continue to grow, to offer the right classes, not just, so part of the challenge, right, is a math teacher can't teach art, and we need to offer all the variety of classes to continue to keep people on their track for graduating on time. So that's one of the challenges we face with, constraints within our bargaining agreement, but we have things we have to fulfill. So it's limiting with that, and having less would be a challenge to budget.
And part of our board's responsibility and task at hand is to allocate finite resources in the best way possible. Really, that's our essential function. And part of that is perhaps right-sizing a budget to fit projected revenues. Thank you.
Steve next in the queue.
Yeah, you have similar concerns expressed by Kevin, and it's not all that different really than I say pretty much every year that I've been here. Like I don't I'm here for the students primarily, right? And I'm very concerned about their rising tuition costs. We see that ours are, well, the highest, but maybe soon to be the second highest in the state. I do appreciate what Sophie had to say, and I am going to support the recommendation because at the end of the day, I want to support the staff recommendation, and it's late in the year, and we have Sophie's endorsement of the tuition increase. And I also want to make an observation. I think something as sort of as sensitive and delicate, critical as this piece deserves kind of multiple check-ins with the board along the way. This isn't a criticism of anybody in particular, but just of the process in general, and something I hope we could rectify next time is, there are other touch points for the board on other dimensions of the budget throughout the year, so that we don't find ourselves where we kind of find ourselves right here now, like, well, here we are and it's getting late and we got to do a thing. We could be checking in and to discover the board's appetite for, whatever, some percentage increase as early as November, and we could do it again in February. So that's just something and more student involvement, as I've talked about or mentioned in the past, I think would allow all of us to get to a place, where we got to this point next year and felt like, all right, there's been a process, we've been involved, et cetera, et cetera. So, so that's more of an observation for next year, but I will support it this time around.
I'm going to jump in for a first round, and then we'll go to Austin or Sophie, and then Austin for a second round. I share my fellow board members' concern around student tuition. I think we would all love to keep our tuition rates growing slower than inflation. That said, I think we also need to recognize the very dire financial situation that our community college is in. We are projecting dwindling ending fund balances for our forecasts. We don't know what our state funding allocation is going to be yet. And we are severely underfunding our deferred maintenance. And so our deferred maintenance is growing by $5-6 million a year, in addition to the $100 million that it already is at. And so I think that we need to be diligent overseers of the college's limited funds. And I think that this is a reasonable and responsible proposal that I'm willing to vote in support of. And then I think I have Sophie and Austin for a second round.
Yeah, I don't think I could support anything higher because y'all in this room are at a 30,000 view and I'm on the ground. I mean, I sit next to someone that stays at the Mission. It's like we're serving those students. So, I mean, it's only right to increase so that students in the future don't pay, but we also, have to think about not increasing too much. It's a hard balance. And kind of to segue off of what Steve had to say about this kind of beneficial transparency to all of the people in the community, there were students that wanted to make public comment tonight at this informational session that I held that weren't able to because of the accessibility of the time. And they weren't able to make it because it got so late. So I took their statements and I'm going to share them now. It actually has to do a lot with what you said. More publicized information about increases in tuition so more students know. Advertise this largely. Also, students should know and be able to be given proof into where the money will go. Budget dispersal information must become publicly available and very easily accessible. Students cannot make informed choices regarding budget modification if they don't understand how it is being dispersed. If my tuition is increased, I would like an understanding of where my tuition dollars are being allocated. Those are just among a few statements that I have received from students being really confused about all of this. And unfortunately, it's fallen on student government associations' back to tell students about this. So I urge the board moving forward that in the future, like Steve is saying, that we involve more students in this decision. It shouldn't just be one or two, but it should be a large majority of students weighing in on this.
Chairman Holland, we'll certainly take that. I know Vice President Joyce is actually writing that down, so we will certainly do that on behalf of the board.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I've got Austin for a second round, and then if there's no further discussion, we'll move to a vote.
Yeah. Overall, yeah, I was really happy to see The cabinet shaking their heads. Yes. Yeah. And I want to absolutely encourage that and absolutely provide information to students. I also want to just note that tuition plus fees, there does create a difference in the rankings of the different institutions. I also want to emphasize the market capacity of our local area and so forth. Like I talk to a lot of parents who, when they are looking at a four-year university and a community college, they still see the economics and the benefits of coming to the community college in regards to wraparound services, direct services that we provide to students, and our wonderful benefits navigator who's been helpful with various services that our students need, as well as the student government. So I definitely want to just emphasize the fact that, yes, this is a tuition increase, but yes, there is things that this pays for that are absolutely critical, not only to our students, but to our greater community as a whole in regards to economic development, workforce development, and the quality of education that we provide. Thank you. Of course.
Okay, seeing no further discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And all opposed say nay.
Nay.
And the motion passes. 5-1. The next action item is the appointment to the Budget Committee. There's currently one vacancy for the Zone 2 position to be appointed by the Zone 2 representative. I am recommending that Dan Isaacson be appointed to the LCC Budget Committee. Is there a motion?
I motion that we appoint Dan Isaacson for the Budget Committee position.
Is there-
second.
Thank you, Julie. Any discussion? And I will
Just-
speak
but-
to it if no one else does.
Just a
Please, please.
question, I
Yeah.
guess. Was there materials of background materials for?
I
this person?
don't think that those got shared with the board. He did apply and shared his resume.
Unless I missed them because of my own mistake, I haven't seen anything until
Right.
I didn't know the name.
Generally, the interviews are conducted by the board member that makes the recommendation. And so I interviewed him and the other candidate and recommending Dan. But it does seem like, yeah, his material should have ended up in the board packet. So you did see them a few months ago back in December, but his resume was updated again and sent in March.
Okay, I'll support this, but as a courtesy, it seems like we should share that documentation.
I agree. Thank you. I agree, Steve. Dan's been involved with NAMI, the mental health nonprofit, and has been on their board of directors as their chair. And I think that he's going to make a really valuable addition to our budget committee. And so I'd ask for unanimous support for his appointment. So all in favor, please say yes or aye.
Aye.
And all opposed say nay. And it passes unanimously. Thank you very much, board. I really appreciate it. The next action item is the LCC Foundation Board Liaison appointment. And so I think the first question is to ask our fellow board members who is interested in being appointed to this position. And I see two hands in the room. So if I could ask Julie and Steve to each speak to your desire to be on this board, and we'll move from there.
Go ahead, Steve.
I didn't prepare a speech or anything. I don't have a lot to say. I have not served on one of the committees that that the board normally appoints members to up till this date. This seemed like this one opened up. It's of interest to me. I have gotten slightly involved with the LCC Foundation, mostly just through donations that my wife and I make, and it seems like an interesting opportunity to further support LCC. I don't have a lot more to say than that.
Thank you, Julie.
You have more involvement with LCC Foundation than I do. And so I'm happy to just like step off and I'll wait my turn as a newbie and have you go ahead and just put your hat in the ring for that. So I'll support you 100%, Steve.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Steve. Could I have a motion to appoint Steve to the...
Motion to appoint Steve Mattel to the Lane Community College Foundation Board.
Second.
Thank you, Denise. All in favor, please say aye.
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 And all opposed, nay. And that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Thanks for
Thank
letting
you.
me Steve serve, both of you. The last action item on the agenda is resolution number 704 regarding a supplemental budget. It's asking me to go straight to a motion, but I'm going to not do that. I'm going to ask for a staff person to go ahead and introduce this item so that we don't deal with that again.
Yes, thank you so much for that. And I'd like to have Vice President Flath just introduce this resolution so that the board is aware of what this is all about.
Sure, thank you. And thanks for looking at this resolution and hopefully moving it forward. Essentially, long story short, as you develop a budget, you start really in March, April, May, and then you have changes that happen within the year. This particular resolution does not eat into any general fund ending fund balances. It's attributed to additional revenues or changes in budget. So for example, there are more fees in our aviation program that we collect because enrollment was higher. So we need more authority to spend in Fund 9. We have restructured we have a Lane Forward Fund that's in general fund. Historically, it's just sat in general fund. We'd like to move that to a grants fund, which is Fund 8, and we'd like to transfer that funding into those little grantee pots so that they're preserved in future years, because what tends to happen is if you have something in general fund and it rolls over year to year, it can lose what its original intention is. And so we award Lane Forward funds in this year. They roll over to the next year and possibly the next year. So it's cleaning up some of those pieces. The larger one, another question was, we had a water leakage break in the health professions building. Any authority asked in that particular program is additional cash coming from the insurance company. So all of these particular changes are related to available cash resources and cleaning up where the budget needs to be. We can't spend that if we don't have the budget in the appropriate places. So requesting approval.
Can we pull up the documents, please?
Thank you.
Got Denise and then Austin. Well, I
think
the one with the spreadsheet, I think.
Yeah, it breaks it down what the different ones are.
Yep.
So a couple questions. Does the budget subcommittee review this supplemental budget?
No.
And why is that?
We can bring it to the budget subcommittee. This one is to account for things we are already doing, so we can bring it as information, but it is something that is already in play. Like we already are collecting aviation funds in our fees. So we can bring it forward to them, but we do need to have authority to spend this. And it's just not, as far as I'm aware, it's not something that's been a practice in the college, but we're happy to do that. This one has not gone there.
So just following up, I think it's not quite that the same thing we saw.
That is the one that is attached.
So for example, Fund 9 that has special revenue, I mean, that's almost $1 million in there.
Yes, 950,000 is associated with the
Yeah.
aviation program.
So, I mean, we're having a lot of discussion on money allocation. So that's why I was wondering about, the specifics of what's in this supplemental budget. And I guess I'm trying to understand which are absolute necessities and which ones may have any kind of give or take on them.
That's a fair question. These are all, I would say these are all necessities. And part of what you're seeing in Fund 9 also includes, not to over confuse it, but as we close the books and we're going to budget right now, we have an estimated carryover. So if you use student fee funded groups as an example, because they're included in this resolution, the NASA group has $15,000 that they didn't anticipate having as a surplus of cash. They did not have budget authority to spend that. So they are coming up on their event this weekend. They are spending that money, and we've said we'll bring it to the board. We will get budget approval for that. But it is cash they have available. They just need the budget authority to spend it. And that one is a common practice to have estimated carryover balances. So we're going to estimate all the carryover balances now and build a budget on it next year, but that still gives 4 months of changes that happen. So that does happen. And there's several groups in Fund 9 that include that, but a big portion of that is an increase in aviation.
Guess I'm just looking for more specificity. I don't know what all falls into community services or college support services, and just trying to understand exactly where some of. I understand what you're saying, that there is no real give or take on these dollars. They have to be there.
In order for the program to continue. So for example, one of the areas of aviation, just to be specific, and those are categories of expenditure types. So it really depends on what that program needs for that particular area. And I can break out that in more detail. I would hope it could still be approved and I could bring further information as far as line item. I couldn't tell you right off the top of my head, but I'm going to guess instruction is if it's related to aviation, it was because they have additional part-time faculty or other things they're bringing in for their courses. Like their drone program has grown to be pretty large this year, and we didn't budget to the extent that it has grown, which is a great problem to have. But I can't tell you specifically in each of those. Some of the student services includes a carryover of our childcare program. They had a large carryover that they didn't anticipate. It was almost 200,000, but they are spending that. So that's our daycare program that Dr. Joyce could speak to. But it includes a variety of those. And I'm happy to bring that level of detail. I do know these groups are anxiously waiting this particular thing. If we can move it forward, that would be great. But I'm happy to bring more information.
I have Austin and then Julie and then Steve.
Excellent. So I am going to vote in support of this, mainly because of the Native American Student Association. I want to make sure that they get their funds that they need and so forth. Before this meeting, we talked about why we have flight tech, an academic program in Fund 9 as opposed to Fund 1. I would like to see. Again, we might need to get more history and dig into the records as to why that is, but I would like to see that actually be in Fund 1 because it is an academic program, and especially around specialized support services for the flight tech program and stuff. So that is something that I just and I do have concerns with this not going through the Budget Sub-Development Committee. So I just want to express that concern. Despite those concerns, though, I want to make sure that the NASA students get their funds and so forth, that we do the proper things with the flight tech school and the aviation program and so forth. But again, at this end, I want us to definitely explore Fund 9 versus Fund 1 with this program. Thank you.
Got Julie and then Steve.
So I'm hoping that if I'm understanding this correction, because I'm looking at my multi-million-dollar budget that I'm managing at my own nonprofit, and we set a good positive guesstimate of what we think the year's going to look like, and we put together this budget. Nothing that can be, it's a living document, it changes. We might estimate 10,000 in one line item and only spend 3, but then we've got another line item where we spent 10,000 and we only budgeted 3. So vice versa. So is that what's kind of going on here? Is that we've got this budgeting item as the year has gone through, we're looking at it now, we're recognizing that some of these line item budgets have overspent or underspent, and we're just moving some funds around that are within the budgeted numbers that we've had, but they're just not in those specific line items. Is that how my brain wants to understand it, or am I getting it wrong?
Your concept is right. As a general rule, for this particular resolution, not necessarily. The only three areas that are cleanup are, you see Fund 2 has 36, 138, and 696 in enterprise and early retirement. Those are the sub-fund cleanup things. Those are the only cleanup items. There's lingering accounts we need to make sure we clear up. But aside from that, this is all because of increased revenue or changes. You will see a resolution that does what you're talking about, Julie, in the very near future.
So the increased revenue then is you're just reallocating that increased revenue to another line item within the same fund, or are you moving it to another fund because you have it?
It's increased revenue for that fund. So general fund also includes fee revenue that is higher than we thought, and it includes the health professions leak, which we receive insurance money, but we still have to have the budget authority to spend that.
Got it.
Fund 9 is fee driven.
So essentially, all you're wanting to do is increase the budget for that fund so that you have the authority now to spend it.
Correct.
Okay, that makes it easier for me to understand. Thank you.
I have Steve and then Denise.
Julie actually asked, and you answered essentially the questions I was going to ask, just to try to get it at a conceptual level. I think some, that this based on the discussion, additional, board education at a subsequent date might be useful, but I'm going to vote in support of it because I have full confidence in Kara Flath that she knows what she's doing. So I appreciate the work.
So I think the screen before something, does this include the resolution that's going to transfer out of early retirement fund, which was a discussion we just had?
This includes a few dollars out of early retirement fund because there is an open fund that we have to correct that has to do with athletic accounts. We're in the same fund number from a decade ago. So there's something that we have to move general funds around to clear that up to make sure it's truly just the early retirement fund. So that's why I say there's three funds. So early retirement fund is going to be the $696, which is where we're increasing the money to move general fund to fix some old accounts that have been sitting there. So historically, for some reason, the college used to have a Fund 7 athletic accounts in there. They've been sitting there for a decade. So when I say we're doing all these sub-fund cleanups, those three small areas are to clean those off the books.
Okay. I see you, Julie. I'm going to jump in for a first round real quick. I sent some questions this afternoon. So I just want to make sure I'm understanding each of these items. So if we could just scroll through each of the big ones, starting at the top. So the instruction and student services and college support services, we're increasing the allocation because we are teaching more people and we needed more staff, correct?
And it has to do with the health professions building leak.
What is the college support services?
It might be the
Okay.
college support
So the
services.
college
yeah.
support services is the leak. Okay, great. And then if we could go down a little bit. And then the 542,000, that is that's the transfer into Fund 8. That's the Lane Forward
Correct.
funds.
Yes.
Okay, is that 1 year of funds or 2 years of funds for the Lane Forward?
That might be, it's a combination of what's left from the year before and then what's this year. So it's twofold.
Okay, so it looks like we didn't fully spend.
Yeah,
they didn't
and again, they were
last
just
year.
sitting in general fund, but we want them to have grants to
Great.
spend it. Yeah.
Thank you. And then the 235 for student services, that's additional revenue that came in?
That's additional carryover revenue for the child care program.
Great. And then the 939 for instruction in Fund 9. So that's, last year we approved $1 million transfer from Fund 1 to Fund 9. Correct?
This one, yes, but that's not this.
This is in addition to that.
This is related to aviation.
This is specifically related
Yes.
to aviation. And can you explain why it's really critical we fund this transfer right now today?
Because, well, aviation is holding up some payments pending getting some of these. It will hold up their payments because they've started the new term. They have to buy a bunch of drones, their increased revenue. So everyone pays fees to go to I'm using that as one example. There's more than one. And they also had some carryover funds. So they have a combination of things.
Does that mean we might transfer less next year or we're going to have to do another $1 million or $2 million next year?
Well, one, it depends on where the program is budgeted at, because we budgeted today for next year, and then it depends what the increased enrollment looks like, because they pay per fee enrollment. So if the enrollment continues to grow at the rate it was, we'll see it grow higher. But, you know, the hope is we budget to cover that. But and again, last year at this time, we had very new staff, just a few months in, trying to figure all this out. So they did their best, but these are the areas that we really did have more fees than what we anticipated.
Okay. I think I have still some concerns about our costs growing faster than our revenues, but I can ask that question probably related to the next little quick discussion. Julie.
I just wanted to make a motion to
I
get
think we're
this
ready.
approved. Have
I
we
think
done
we're
that?
ready for that. Please do.
I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution number 704 as stated. I'm not going to read everywhere as, so I'm going to say as it was read into the record and attached to our agenda item, if that's acceptable. Is that acceptable?
I believe it is. Is there a
Okay,
second?
good.
I'll second the motion.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
And all opposed, please say nay. And that passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, moving on, I think what I would like to do is just ask if we have any questions about the biannual financial update.
Wasn't that
And
moved
could we,
to 420?
no, that's the enrollment and retention report that got removed.
Oh,
Could we maybe just pull it up for 5 minutes and we'll just make sure everybody feels good about it and we'll move on.
Just really quick, under 6, item A, right?
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Do you want to just do the quick version?
So if this is a combination with Brett and myself, so the first two slides are really a recap because we've gone through the second quarter financial update. We will bring forward a third quarter financial update. So you have seen the first, if you go to the first, okay, that's what we're quickly going to discuss. This you saw, so I just wanted to give you a reminder of what we already looked. So biennial budget forecast, this is what it looked like. Next page is again a recap of what we're projecting our ending fund balances to look at like. And then the next section is where you might want some insight. This is where Brett was going to give you some quick, here's how the landscape and the legislative look is potentially going to affect our budget. And I don't know if you want Brett to go through that really quickly. He has great information.
I do.
Okay, thank you. As you know, we're in the middle of the budget getting developed in Salem right now. About a week and a half ago, the chairs of the Ways and Means Budget Committee released what historically has been called the co-chair's budget. It's now being called the co-chair's framework. And basically, every day, the feeling in the Capitol seems to be more and more pessimistic about our economic outlook. Budget leaders forwarded for higher ed basically a budget that is nearly identical to the governor's recommended budget released 3 months ago. Just a reminder that our funding for the Community College Support Fund in that budget is about $50 million less than what we are asking for. We're asking for $920 million. So we're about $50 million under current service level. Right now, that's starting to feel like that could be a win for us to finish at in June. Budget leaders also announced that due to all the uncertainty in DC, they are preparing scenarios of 10, 20, and 30% reductions to the state budget. They're aware that most of probably what they'll have to react to will occur after they finish the final state budget. But they are preparing scenarios for what would basically be a worst case scenario. Just to give you a sense, the worst economic recession that Oregon's had in the past 25 years was in 2003, and that was about a 15% reduction to the state budget that had to occur. So a 30% reduction would be fairly significant. However, Oregon's budget is very much a budget that is based off of federal funds. It is not designed to operate without federal funds. And so you have just a few examples here of how Oregon is reliant on the federal government. Healthcare in Oregon, 60% of Oregon's human services budget is funded by the federal government. The Oregon Health Plan was a national leader when it was brought out a few decades ago, but it was very much dependent on federal funds in order to work. 1 out of every 2 K-12 students is dependent on federal funds for healthcare. And so the reason I bring this up is that we are hopeful that not a lot of the federal impacts in DC will directly impact community colleges. However, it very much could impact other resources, other priorities of the state government, what Oregon depends on to operate. And so if 1 out of every 2 K-12 students loses their health care, there's going to be a push in Salem to come up with state funds to try to fill those holes the best as possible. Education, there's a lot of grants that support trainings for teachers. We have school lunch programs that are funded by the federal government, nutritional assistance programs, the SNAP program, food assistance benefits, homelessness prevention efforts, housing programs, transportation and road maintenance. It's a huge priority in Salem right now to come up with a budget that can help repair our crumbling infrastructure, bridges, and highways. And last but not least, we all know how important wildfire prevention and the resources to fight wildfires are. We have been averaging hundreds of millions of dollars to fight wildfires annually. And so without the federal support, that's just more strain on the state budget. Here's just an example of, this is the budget that will be coming to an end in June. It was slightly less than the 2-year budget approved in 21-23 because of the COVID funds starting to be falling off. But nearly 1/3 of the state budget right now is dependent on federal funds. So you're looking at nearly $38.5 billion. Now, the one difference right now Oregon has today that it did not have in 2003 with that last awful recession, we have a rainy day fund. So there's an education stability fund and then there's the rainy day fund, but combined, those are about $3.5 billion. So compared to the hole that could be created by a reduction of federal funds, that rainy day fund does not go very far. It was designed to get us through an economic recession, not the elimination of federal support. March forecast was released, and it had, some good news. General fund and lottery revenue was up for 25-27. It gave legislators just a little more to work with. However, it was down for the current biennium. And, Oregon's one of the, is the only state in the country with a kicker, with the kicker, right? And so right now, there's a very good chance that our legislature could be making budget cuts here towards the end of this year as a result of reduced federal funding, while at the same time planning to send back $1.7 billion to taxpayers next year in a personal kicker. The budget leaders in the legislature will use the upcoming June forecast released on May 14th as the amount of money they have for the budget. And so they are going to, it's a guess from the state economist, not really a guess, he's a professional, so it's his best estimate, but it is very, if it was difficult to come up with a state budget or a state economic forecast under COVID, it's equally as difficult for that state economist to do that under the current uncertainty in DC. So they're going to do their best. They're going to come up with an amount to base the budget off of, and the legislature will pass that in June, but it is very likely that they will have to come back in a special session or in next year's short session in February to make some adjustments if there's significant reductions in federal funds, or, if you've been watching the stock market today, if there's a significant turn for the worst with our economy. Last, I just wanted to kind of give you a sense of what budget reductions would look like for Lane. If the legislature approved our community college support fund at the governor's recommended budget, a 5% reduction would be about $43.5 million. For Lane, based off of 8% of the pie, which is basically what we get from the support fund, that would be about $3.5 million annually. However, we're on a 2-year budget cycle in Oregon. So if we get into February next year and we're getting closer to just being in that second year of the biennium and they have to make a 5% reduction, A 5% reduction in the second year of a biennium, because it's a 2-year budget, has the impact of a 10% reduction. So a 5% reduction to the support fund in the second year of the biennium would have an impact to Lane of negative $7 million. So when you are considering the ending fund balance and having conversations amongst yourselves about what is an appropriate percentage to have as an ending fund balance, as the resident historian, I can tell you, we created the ending fund balance when the 2003 recession occurred, and we started with a 5% ending fund balance. And then after the Great Recession in 2013, 2014, the board reconsidered that amount and increased the ending fund balance to 10%. Right now, it doesn't really look like even 10% would be enough to deal with the significant reductions that we could be facing if we had some of those worst case scenarios. So I'm really sorry to have to deliver that message this evening. I like to bring happy news, but open to any questions if you have them.
See Denise.
Yeah. Wow. Where can we begin? I think one of the biggest impacts, right, that I can think of for our students is, the federal grants, tuition grants, and what kind of plan are we able to, I mean, it wouldn't just be Lane, obviously it would be, all the higher learning and community colleges. But is there like a coalition thing? Everybody will be impacted. Is there a way to do things as a kind of brainstorm plan A, plan B for a coalition of what everybody might be doing or how they're thinking about it?
Yes, it's just a lot of our congressional delegation, both in the House and Senate, are in the minority at the moment. And so both the members and their staff feel pretty, I don't want to say powerless, but they,
I mean, what
They're
can
on
we
the
do at Lane if if a bunch of that federal money goes away for students?
Well, right now we are hopeful. I'm sure you've heard proposals for moving student loans and the Pell Grant program to other agencies as the Trump administration is seeking to close down the Department of Education. We expect that those programs will remain intact and that our students will still have access to those funds. However, one of the things we're running into is seeing increased times for things like VA benefits to be processed. What used to take 2 weeks when I talked with our folks today, it's now taking anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks. And so that's where I suspect our students are really going to feel the impact. And as an institution, when we have to go to Department of Ed or whatever agency it may turn out to be to get approval for some of our programs to be eligible for federal financial aid, we may run into situations where we're not getting the approvals back in the same timely manner that we used to, and that could have another impact on our students. I really think, though, that it's a lot of the other programs. It's the SNAP funding, it's housing assistance, it's those wraparound services that our students really depend on in order to focus on their studies. That's where it's going to become very challenging. And we attended a town hall when Senator Merkley was in Eugene a few months ago, and President Bolger and I were in a small meet and greet prior. Speaker Fahey from the Oregon legislature was there, and she basically said that she viewed her job as figuring out a way to plug those holes if that federal funding goes away. And so it became very apparent to both us and the U of O who were in the room that higher education is not going to be the priority if we start to see some of those worst case scenarios play out.
I have Austin next in the queue.
Wish we had a seventh board member to help us get through all this. But with that all being said, I do want to say that OCCA is doing everything possible to advocate for community colleges, to support community colleges, to support the community college budget as well. And I'm really impressed by the OCCA staff, as well as the supportive services that Brett and so many others from all 17 community colleges bring forward to the table. And again, I know it's very difficult to be optimistic right now. And I know that we are going to do our very best. Many people said that this institution is a gem of this community, and I do not want that gem to no longer shine or to no longer be a absolutely incredible institution to this community. No matter what happens at the federal level, the pandemic was uncertain times. This is uncertain times, and we're going to get through this.
Thank you. Can we, oh, sorry, can you pull that back up, Brett?
Did you do that?
You go to the slide regarding the trends regarding the ending fund balance. Yeah, this one here. For the 2026 forecast, was that for state revenue was and tuition revenue, was that using the 3.1% tuition revenue number? And was it you built out using the governor's recommended budget, more than that or less than that?
Was using the governor's recommended budget, and I think it was 4% tuition.
Okay, so this is actually overestimating our tuition revenue relative to what we just approved.
Correct.
So I'm very concerned when I see this graph. Not only are we having large projected ending fund balances for this year, but that's getting larger into the future. And it looks like we're actually underestimating how much that over we're going to go. For this year, last year at this time in May, when we approved a budget, we were looking at hopefully restoring our $10 million ending fund balance. And so really understanding what we got wrong with our estimates so that we don't make similar mistakes in these estimates, because if this year we're 2 million less than we expected, and if next year we're 2 million worse. I'm very concerned about this graph. And so I think we have a lot of work to do as a board to make sure that we're getting to the point where we are projecting annual budget surpluses sufficient to ensure that we are not only restoring our ending fund balance to 10%, but that as our revenues and expenditures grow, and that 10% goes up each year as our revenues and expenditures grow, that we're able to maintain that 10% over the long term. And so we're in a precarious position. And I ask for the board to really understand where we're at, and we'll have many difficult decisions ahead of us in order to get us back to where we need to go. I see Julie, and then I see Steve.
Brett, thanks for you can get rid of this slide for me. I don't need to look at it anymore. But thanks for the analysis. I really appreciate it. I mean, for my organization, we're paying attention all the time because some of the things that you just spoke of, and like health services, is a direct impact on our organization. And, this very uncertain time for many people in our community, how it affects this college, all of it. I am encouraged though, and have glimmers of hope, and I'm not as dire scared as I was, given that we have, we've got some good guardrails that are starting to show up with our court systems. We have some good warriors that are starting to show up in the reporters by pulling up information, and we're learning more and more. The legislature's being able to stop things that they weren't before. So it feels like we may have some movement. So these letters that they're sending out to all of us to say you're going to lose all your money, the judge is going, wait, you can't do that. So I feel like we have a little bit of, hope, a glimmer, but at the same time, it makes it increasingly difficult, if not impossible, to really forecast properly, because this uncertainty is pretty significant. And because it has so many trickle-down effects, as you just painted out, from the Fed to the state to the county to all of us. So, our kind of like well-positioned. We've got the budgeting process and the committees all starting in a few weeks. And so we just have to hopefully we'll have more specific information for us to work with. But I do have a little bit of a glimmer of hope. on some of this. So I just wanted to leave that in the room too, when it feels really doomy gloomy around it on that budget presentation.
That's Steve, and then I'd like to move us on to our good of the order items.
Kara, questions for you. So I think you said that there's you baked into those assumptions, the graph that Julie didn't want to look at anymore, is 4% tuition increases year over year, I assume, not just in the year ahead of us. So honestly, to me too, that sounds a little high, something we might want to adjust. You may have said this, and I apologize if you did and I missed it. What about the enrollment increases that you're baking into those?
The enrollment increases were, I think they were at 3%, so they were a little high as well. And let me just qualify, as we move forward in the budget development process, that's part of what this fabulous team, President Bolger and myself, get the challenge of looking at and making sure we are looking at every area of our budget and right-sizing what we can and making methodical decisions, because all of those are true. And what that picture gives us is an indication that we have to take action and start looking at things. And that's where President Bolger is going to have to help look at this and bring forward a plan for the board.
And so what I'm hearing is that while we could, maybe grow our way a little bit out of the situation, we're not likely to grow ourselves all the way out of it, given that you've already factored in whatever it is, 3% year over year enrollment increase. And so what you're telling us is that that you're giving us the rosiest picture you think you can on the revenue side, and we've got a fairly all right, well.
Yeah, it's a challenging landscape because the ability to get any increase in state revenues, aside from what the state allocates us to move the needle 8% and grow anymore, is not going to happen anytime in the near future. So we just have to look at the reality of it and bring forward a plan that we can sustain.
Okay, any other discussion? I see
I was
Denise.
just going to say that historically, when the economy is really tough and certain support systems, right, are weak, then enrollment will go down because people will be working. And that's how they're going to keep, afloat. So, I mean, that's a reality. And as we know that some of these things are going to be delayed for sure and possibly cut, that's going to create a lot of uncertainty. And I think it's realistic to anticipate that enrollment will go down. I mean, not through anyone's fault. It's just that that's what happens. You have to work and that's what you got to do. So as flexible as we can be. And I think the board has done, thrown out some really good ideas about, both the online courses, the hybrid ones, students being able to enroll in, a couple of terms ahead and everything like that, so that they can balance and balancing, right, work and all these stresses that are coming down the pike. That's going to be a lot.
Yeah, thank you, trustee. We're doing everything that we can to really serve more people.
Yeah.
And so we are anticipating the enrollment trends to continue, that we've seen the very positive enrollment trends.
Luke, to move on to board member questions and comments. Kevin?
I have an important letter to read to the board, please.
Take one and pass it.
Please. Dear Board of Education, effective leadership is a blend of vision, collaboration, professional communication, emotional intelligence, and the ability to inspire and guide others towards common goals. Effective leadership is not about wielding power forcefully or unilaterally. This letter will describe my concerns with the chair of the Board of Education's ineffective leadership and repeated inappropriate and unprofessional behaviors toward the president of Lane Community College. I'm writing the board because my attempts to resolve the issues directly with the board chair have been unsuccessful. To provide background, I will discuss my observations of the chair's behavior in context with my professional experience, as well as the standards from the Association of Community College Trustees. During the past 7 months as vice chair of the board, I've attended biweekly agenda scheduling meetings with the chair, the president, and the staff liaison to the board. During these meetings, the board chair has become increasingly verbally abusive to the president, often attempting to bully the president by raising his voice and using profanity. The chair has repeatedly used language that is offensive, derogatory, and profane, often challenging the president's position with condemning and dismissive statements. I've spoken to the chair numerous times regarding his behavior over the past few months and asked him to stop his unprofessional and abusive actions. Despite my efforts, the chair's negative behaviors have increased. On March 27, I ended an agenda-setting meeting after the chair repeatedly raised his voice and swore at the president. My opinion was that the chair created an unsafe and hostile environment, and I was concerned about the president's well-being, so I asked the meeting to end immediately. I based that decision on observing the president's facial expressions and body language and listening to her suggestion that perhaps the meeting should be ended. It is important for the board to understand that during these repeated verbal attacks from the chair over the past months, the president consistently remained calm, gracious, and attempted to explain her perspectives in a professional manner. I hold a PhD in educational leadership and worked at the University of Oregon for nearly 20 years in various roles, including classroom instruction, research and evaluation, and university committees. Most of my academic work centered on the human services professions and the importance of mediating aggressive and bullying behaviors with positive relationships. Some of my work investigated the negative effects of structural racism on people of color, specifically in the child welfare and juvenile justice systems. Prior to my academic career, I was a construction engineer for 20 years, and I supervised many employees and project teams. I have more than 30 years of experience as a nonprofit board member, serving on local boards, including leadership positions. The span of my professional work has been characterized by respectful professional relationships, problem solving, and effective teamwork. In all of my professional experience, I have never experienced any leadership behavior as inappropriate or disrespectful as what I have observed with the current chair.
I don't know if I'm doing this right. I don't think this is the appropriate manner in which to share this information. I respect your point of view. However, I would like to say that the board can process this information.
This is the chair's decision. You're not speaking to me. Speak to the chair.
Okay, so that, I don't know, I'm sorry, I just don't know exactly how a point of order works, but I feel like this is not the appropriate venue by which to review and discuss. And I don't know what, Austin has a hand up.
It's Kevin has the floor, and if he feels it's important to finish reading his letter, then I'm going to go ahead and let him finish reading his letter.
Yeah.
I don't expect any discussion, Trustee
No,
Dunn.
I don't either. I just didn't, my point is that this isn't the forum by which to share and bring points, concerns up.
This behavior has gone on too long, and I cannot sit by idly, silently anymore.
As a member of the board, I would appreciate receiving, we have emails that the board members have access to.
I'd like to finish my statement.
Okay, well, I would have liked to have this statement in that email so I could digest it and.
You have a copy, and I would hope that you would study and review it. Based on my professional experience, I'm concerned that the board's chair's verbally abusive behaviors toward the president has formed a negative environment that could be preventing her from performing her work. Additionally, the observed disrespectful behaviors toward the president are consistent with many of the negative dynamics described in the academic literature that are related to structural racism and sexism. Specifically, the chair's continued hostile, intimidating, harassing, and dismissive speech towards the president are congruent with the literature. The ACCT is a nonprofit organization that started in 1969, around the same time that LCC began. The ACCT represents more than 6,500 elected and appointed community college trustees and provides guidelines and standards for effective boards of governance. The following paragraphs are based on the information in the publication, Trusteeship in Community Colleges, a Guide for Effective Governance. One of the fundamental requirements for effective governance is a healthy and respectful relationship between the board and the president. This doesn't mean the board rubber stamps whatever the president wants, but rather works alongside the president supporting efforts to make the college better. The board must have confidence in the president's ability to operate the college in a competent and professional manner. An important role of the chair is to facilitate the relationship between the board and the president and to promote a collaborative partnership. Public support for the president is essential, and any wavering sends a clear signal to the public and to the president that the board is not satisfied with the president's performance. President Bolger's performance has been exemplary, and she is making excellent progress on the 3 goals that the board approved: fiscal health, increased enrollment, and institutional climate of the college. Any statements to the contrary are not true and are contradictory to the data from the president's ongoing performance evaluation. The role of the chair is also to facilitate discussions of diverse opinions efficiently and maintain decorum. The chair loses effectiveness if disrespectful behavior is allowed to continue, and it is especially problematic when the chair is the one exhibiting the disrespectful behavior. Recently, the board received a formal complaint regarding the board's treatment of the president, and as another example of ineffective leadership, the chair has not raised addressing the complaint as a priority. Based on my professional experiences and the ACC standards, I'm informing the board that the chair's behaviors toward the president are unprofessional, inappropriate, and unsupportable. I believe the chair's actions directly conflict with the standards of effective leadership and have likely created a hostile environment, thus putting the board and the college at risk because of the very real possibility of losing a highly qualified and effective president who is fulfilling the performance standards as set by the board. I'm not willing to idly stand by and let this happen. Based on my professional opinion, the chair is a bully who is misusing his chairmanship role to intimidate the president. Frankly, I'm embarrassed by the chair's actions and behaviors, and I expect more from a chairperson leading the board of an important public education organization. I request the chair immediately stop abusive behaviors toward the president and issue a public apology to the president. I request the chair collaborate with the president and publicly support the president's efforts. If the chair cannot commit to these requests, including refraining from abusive and hostile behavior, he needs to step down as chair and allow someone who can lead the board without putting the board or LCC at risk. Sincerely, Kevin Altucker. Thank you.
I see Austin in the queue and then Denise,
Um,
if she wants it.
I move we adjourn.
Austin?
Let me, as the former chair, just offer my services if there's a agenda setting meeting. I don't know why you laughed, but okay.
I can explain it later.
Okay. Wow, okay. As a former chair, I'd be willing to offer my services to attend these meetings in the future to offer just mediative services and to help allow for constructive conversations and so forth in the future. I'm just offering that as for my services. In regards to a few different things here, I would love to find out more information about automotive classroom sizes and what we're doing with that, and just some additional information around that would be greatly appreciated. The ITS and the testing centers, I know we created a line item for those services for the testing center because it was brought together with different like budgeting sources and stuff. And I believe in the last budgeting cycle, we created an actual line item for the testing center. I would like to expand on that and then figure out the stability of that funding, especially with AI becoming more prevalent with education institutions. Having a consistent and stable funding for the ITS, I see as a huge benefit to our institution, and also expansion and maybe even permanency, because I know those employees tend to be temporary. and their work is very complex. And I would like to see what we can do about creating a budgetary system to create that consistency and permanency. And yeah, those are just some main things I just wanted to bring across as questions for future conversations, especially as we go into the budgetary cycle. Thank you.
I'll just put out, I don't feel like I can respond to all the points that were brought up in the letter directly. I will simply state, I respect President Bolger. I respect her abilities, and much of the work that she does for this institution is not just good, but exemplary. There's much more that could be said about the dynamics between myself and my vice chair that I think led to the moments during that meeting that were tense. But I don't want the community to assume that everything that was raised is valid from my perspective. And anyways, there's no more points that I can make sort of on a point-to-point basis. This is probably not the time or place. And I would just like to say that I appreciate the president and her service. And I apologize if there was any frustration or concern on her part related to my frustrations in that meeting, which were frankly, from my perspective, more between the dynamics between my vice chair and myself. I want to appreciate everyone's time. Kevin, while I disagree with some of the points that you made, listen, I will take it into consideration and try and do some soul searching to see areas that I may have acted inappropriately, and I appreciate that. With that said, I see Sophie, and then I do have one final question for the board. Thank you.
Well, this is a little bit of a topic change, but I just wanted to alert the board that if you go onto the website, on the Lane website, it still says the board is meeting at 6 p.m. And it's just really not accessible for students. You know, there are a lot of ways for the board to be able to reach students and invite them here, because it's really important that we get student voices, I think. So yes, if the board could somehow maybe look into those ways of communicating to the student body, I have a list that I can provide of ways to maybe get that on there. Just because it was like a 6-day notice to the board members that we were going to meet at 7, that the board was going to meet at 7. And I just think that there are more ways that we could be letting students know that we're meeting later or just meeting period. So thanks. If somebody could follow up with me on that.
Austin?
Oh, yeah. Again, and I brought this up last time when we did the executive meeting ahead of the board meeting. May I just recommend, it's been past practice that we start an executive meeting at 5, so it ends at 6. Again, I think it is about student accessibility, so I really want to echo that point so that our students have access to being able to come to the podium, bring their public comments to the board. So yeah, I just want to encourage us that if we are going to have executive session, do it at 5 o'clock to 6 or at the end of the board meeting. I immensely appreciate everyone's work though in creating the agenda. Thank you.
Last item regarding future meeting dates, there was a request that went out around moving a couple of dates in May. The most important of those would be Wednesday, the 21st, to try and move that up a day or back a day. If people are amenable to that, it would be greatly appreciated. If not, I understand and will keep it the same night. Steve.
Just on that topic, didn't we provide have you gotten all the feedback you need, or is there feedback missing to?
I think we just need to decide on the Tuesday or Thursday if folks are amenable to it.
Yeah, but I thought we sent out a poll and we all.
I thought
Anybody answer?
Celia, can you wait? Yes, excuse me, trustee. Yes. Can you weigh in on that, please?
Yes, so the poll went to the full budget committee, and most people were amenable to moving one or two of the dates to a Tuesday or a Thursday.
Okay, so I'd like to request that we move the Wednesday, May 21st meeting to Tuesday, the 20th, if possible.
I'm open to it.
Steve?
Well, my feedback was that I couldn't move it to the 20th, but I could
Oh.
move it to the Thursday.
Then let's do that instead, the 22nd on the Thursday.
22nd, okay.
So just so I have it, we're not meeting on the 21st. That's a work session. And instead, we're going to the 22nd on Thursday.
Yeah.
At 6 o'clock.
There would be a budget committee meeting ahead of time, so 5. And then I see Julie's hands raised.
I just, I can't make any of those work. Wednesdays are my days. I've got stuff locked in on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And we have an entire budget committee. Yes, there was a few people on the budget committee that were amenable. If we're going to pick a day, then I think it needs to be signed off by all committee members. This is a special request to accommodate the chair's time. It has nothing to do with the budget committee's ability. It has one person wants the meeting moved. And I'm going to register my objection that one person should not be moving the date of a budget committee. Our student just said that we have to notify stuff. So if we're going to do this, it needs to go back to the budget committee and say, are you all in agreement to have the date moved to a specific one? But for us at 10:30 at night, deciding that that meeting is going to be changed to Thursday is not the way this is done. That is rule by the loudest voices in the room and not by majority vote. And so I just got to object 100%. We should not be taking action in the middle of information and questions at 10:30 at night.
Julie, I appreciate that. This is the time to talk about calendar dates, but hearing what you're saying that you're not available either of those 2 nights, I will withdraw my request and I won't be able to attend both meetings, but so be it. And but I don't want to. If another board member is not going to be able to attend because we're moving it, then it doesn't make sense for me to make that request. So I think given that it would mean Julie not being able to attend, I will simply pull my request. Steve.
I just want to bring this back to the letter that Kevin wrote. I'm not going to comment on the letter, but it's it's about as serious an allegation as we can have, right? And I'm not here at this moment to say what's right and what's wrong. My expectation is only that this not be dropped and that board leadership work with the president and then inform the rest of us as to what process we might take to get ourselves back on a healthier track, because we clearly need that. And that is my expectation of board leadership at this point in time.
Yeah, and I will share. I contacted OSBA right after that meeting and got some advice from Vince Adams because of the frustrations and the dynamics in that meeting that I agree were less than I would hope for. With that, our meeting is adjourned. Thank you.